Hello, welcome to Cable's Conquests. I'm your host, Archie Cable, and we're here to talk about Marvel Crisis Protocol.
The name's Cable. Remember it.
Hello, welcome back to Cable's Conquests. We're back for part 2 of our WTC episode. I'm your host, Archie Cable, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Curtis Hodgson. Curtis, how you doing?
Hi Archie, yep, I'm doing great, thanks. Absolutely itching to hear more about your weekend in Copenhagen. I was following from a distance, keeping tabs on the Longshank, messaging you throughout, and yeah, super excited to hear how all your games went.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, you had a little bit of FOMO, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, definitely. And don't get me wrong, I was having a great weekend of my own, but yes, absolutely, lots of FOMO. WTC 2025. I look forward to it.
And I will definitely be going back for it because WC 2024 did not disappoint. It was a fantastic weekend. Got lots of games, and I won't spoil how many in the end. But just to recap, so this is our second WTC episode. So we did one previously, which was before I'd gone to Copenhagen, where we went into my roster in detail and my team in detail. But just kind of recap that a little bit. But please do go and listen to that episode. So WTC is this big world teams event that takes place in Copenhagen, and it literally takes place in a big conference room at the airport hotel. You don't even have to leave the airport to get to the hotel. It was like absolutely insane.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It literally don't even need to go outside.
No, you could almost stay in over international territory. So I actually went a day early. So I got to Copenhagen on the Thursday so that I could actually go and see a bit of Copenhagen.
Was it fun? What did you get up to while you were in Copenhagen?
Yeah, it was good fun. I went with a group of people that had arrived a little bit early as well. Had a few drinks on the Thursday night, not too many.
Of course, you've got to keep your wits about you. Big event ahead.
Yeah, saw a few of the sites. I actually learned how to play Magic the Gathering.
Oh, interesting. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was good actually. It was good fun. You know, that was my little warm up for a gaming weekend.
Nice.
It was good. Would recommend going to Copenhagen, even though I was only there for about 24 hours before I locked myself in the basement of a hotel.
Excellent. Well, before we get into the games, obviously you've done your day in Copenhagen, you've done your touristing, you've locked yourself in. Give us a feeling for the vibe. You know, what's going on? What's the setup look like? What does the room look like? What do the tables look like? You know, put us in Copenhagen with you.
Yeah, so I got to Copenhagen on the Friday at about 4ish, and there was already a lot of people there already. And so you're on the ground floor in the lobby, and you go down some stairs, and it kind of opens out into almost like a bar area where it ended up being the food was served. The ticket was all inclusive, so we literally had like our food brought to us. We had buffets for every
incredible.
meal. It was brilliant. And then you turn a corner and walk into this cavernous, clearly like a conference room. It was huge, and I mean there were 200 plus people in this room, and it was not cramped by any stretch of the imagination.
Wow. I mean, logistically, that's what 210 players, so 105 gaming tables.
Yeah,
MCP, 3x3, all set up in this hall.
Yeah, and they were kind of long tables, always in like groups of 5 because this is a team event. You know, teams of 5, so you could all be in the one space. And there'd clearly been loads of contributions to the tables. I mean, Gil, who ran the event, did a fantastic job with getting all the tables together. They'd set up the tables in a way that for each 5, there was a different kind of density of terrain on each of the boards, because that made the pairing process more interesting, because if you're not choosing the matchup, you're able to choose the terrain on the board. So,
oh, that's really interesting.
Say you've got a Brotherhood, you could choose the most densely terrained board. So he's clearly put a huge amount of thought to it.
I really like that. It's a good balance because obviously with an odd number of pairings, there will be one team will naturally determine more of the pairings than the other. You know, anyone who's been to a team event will know that it's favourable to get priority and decide the order of the pairings ultimately, so you can decide the last 2. But if you're not deciding them, choosing your table is probably some way to go to try and balance that when you're thinking about, what your team likes, what the team that's been put up against you likes. Not just the case for the likes of Brotherhood, but if you see in a roster some of those round one shenanigans, like midline grabs, you see a table that might impede that. You can jump on it and hopefully try and gain an advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really good way of doing it because it just gave you a little bit more choice and a little bit more kind of emphasis on the pairings.
Great.
Yeah, brilliant space. I had a few pickup games on the Friday evening, so I managed to get 3 in on the Friday evening.
Okay, I'm making notes. That's 3 so far. We've got a target of 15 that I set in the last episode. Go back and listen to that.
And I started very badly. I went 0-3 on Friday night.
Practice. You learn. You don't learn anything from victory. You learn from those losses.
Yeah, they were very useful. I got to try out a few of the tricks that I was thinking of and to middling success. So yeah, I felt good that I'd got some games under my belt, got the lay of the land a bit. I have to say, I did feel quite overwhelmed on the Friday because I was really excited for this, and just walking in there, I wanted to play loads of games. I wanted to speak to people. There were quite a few people that I've met from previous events. There was a huge contingent of Londoners that I knew, and so trying to see everyone while also play games and also just take it all in was quite... So Friday night was quite a helter-skelter evening for me, but it was a great evening, but it was helter-skelter.
Oh, wow. So, hopefully you managed to take yourself away from that, get yourself plenty of rest, ready for the big tournament on Saturday morning.
Yep, that's right. So I was sharing a room with one of my teammates. So I should just remind everyone, in the last episode we covered this in more detail, but I was playing for Team Denmark. So I was a Dane for the weekend. And so I was joined by Stefan, my team captain, Casper and Niels, who are the 3 Danes, and then the Danish splashes were myself and Finley, who ended up being my roommate.
All right. I hear Finley's a bit of a meta splash, so it's good that you've managed to squeeze him in there. But obviously, you're a bit of a wild card, aren't you? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm more of a wild card. Finley went straight down the middle with Cabal, and I just went extract shield.
Extract shields, yeah. Excellent. And did you get to meet the Danes on the Friday night, or did they arrive then on the Saturday?
Yeah, so they arrived a little bit later than us. They drove after work, and it was quite good because we were able to get a kind of sit-down team meeting on the Friday night to kind of discuss some of the tactics.
Very organised.
Some of the pairings particularly, yeah. I mean, I have to say that we hadn't talked lots on the chat about the pairing process before, so it was really good to kind of get everyone else's perspective because for example, the previous episode of Cable's Conquests, we took some takes on what their rosters were going to do, but as we'd said then, it was our opinions, and so I actually needed to know what my teammates were actually planning. So yeah, we got a chance, sat down for about an hour to get to know each other a bit. And
did we get much of it right?
I think so, yeah. I think we did all right there, I think.
Okay, good. That makes me feel a little bit vindicated.
Yeah, especially the Apocalypse actually was interesting because neither of us have played before, but obviously you've thought about him a little bit more.
I have. He's finally been dispatched, which
good.
is very exciting.
Good. That is exciting.
So maybe he'll make an appearance on a Cable's Conquest episode at some point in the future.
Yeah, WCC 2025 Apocalypse.
By the time I get him painted up.
Exactly.
That sounds about right. Anyway, okay, great. Well, it sounds brilliant. It sounds like setup. You're well rested on the Friday night. Shall we pause there and then maybe go into your first game? God, this is exciting.
You're boring me. If you want to help me nail them, get your team together and let's get started.
So, before we get into the first game, I just thought I'd quickly run through my roster again. We go into a much deeper dive of my S.H.I.E.L.D. roster in the last episode, so check it out if you haven't already. So my characters are She-Hulk, Namor, Nick Fury, Agent Venom, the Black Widow, Spectacular Spider-Man, Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos, Black Widow, Dr. Voodoo, and Black Panther Chosen of Bast. My team tactics cards are Battlefield Medicine, the Shield Mobile, Sitrep, Eye in the Sky, the Invaders, Prince's Protection, Defensive Prototype, the Initiative, Brace for Impact, and Patch Up. And then my crises are for Secures, Sword Base, Infinity Formula, and Mutant Madman. And my extracts are Spider Infected, cubes and senators. Now, let's go into the first game.
We're not retreating. It's victory or death.
So Archie, you've had your breakfast. You're all inclusive. Your team's huddled. You've been paired up, and you enter the pairing process. Let's not go too much into the pairing process, unless, of course, there's some interesting things you wanted to pick up on. But when it all is said and done, who do you get paired up against, and what have they brought?
So we're up against one of the Swedish teams called Advanced R&R, was this Swedish team. So it wasn't the Swedish team that won it last year, but still very good opponents. And I actually, coincidentally, got paired into their X-Men player who was playing Professor X.
Ooh! I'm not sure who I want to win.
Well, when we were doing the pairing process, I was thinking, actually, that's not too bad a pairing for me because I have played against X-Men a lot, and he had Storm and Professor X, and I kind of assumed that he was going to play Storm. But as it turns out, he played Professor X, and this was his 60th recorded game of Professor
Wow.
X.
So he's a bit of a Professor X expert.
Yeah, an expert, yeah.
I mean, you've had lots of games against it now, and so good practice for you, but not quite 60.
No.
So he's got a bit of an advantage there. Okay, interesting. So how does he make it work? What are his secrets? I've got my pen and paper out now.
So yeah, exactly. So we roll priority. So I'm playing against Anstones is his name. He's a really nice guy, and we roll for priority, and priority goes to him, goes to Anstones.
Strong.
So he takes his extract, and we draw scrolls and infinity formula. And I decide for the first game of the weekend, let's go a juicy 20 threat.
Nice. So all the toys. But Professor X likes this, and he's probably got two of his own crises in this situation as well, or certainly two that Professor X really likes.
We actually had relatively similar crises across the board, and Scrolls was, I think he had Senators as well, which I had. X-Men love Senators. So it was it probably didn't overly matter which one he went for, but in the end, we got the Infinity Formula and Scrolls. And so I go for Namor, Nick Fury, Agent Venom, Spectacular Spider-Man, and the first splash of the weekend, Dr. Voodoo.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, yep. So you've gone 5 wide at 20 threat. What's the thinking there? Are you expecting him to go 6, and therefore you really want to grapple priority back from him?
Yeah, I'm thinking he'll go 6, but I, for kind of all intents and purposes, I'm also going 6 wide because of Nick Fury's grunts.
Ah, of course. So even though he's got priority, you can use the grunts.
And the other thing is there's a big building in the middle which kind of blocks the Skrull's push. So I'm hoping that I can grab a Skrull with my grunts. And even if I get pushed, I'm not getting pushed straight towards him. So yeah, that was kind of my thinking there. So Anstone's squad was Professor X, Nightcrawler, and Beast. 3 characters I'm very well acquainted with.
3 great characters. Like to see them.
Kitty Pryde.
Interesting.
Rhino, who's obviously very good with Professor X, and Okoye.
Ah.
So he's gone down the Okoye route, and we talked about a bit why after the game. But you'd have gone Wong, he's gone Okoye. So
interesting. Yeah. Okay. I'd like to see how this goes. Of course, Rhino seems like he's a great pick everywhere, isn't he? But
yeah,
with his Stampede superpower, being able to pass him power to get This Is Robbery online super early seems really strong.
Yeah.
And Kitty Pryde is a great shout. She's got a suite of superpowers. She's also got a place, so she can be part of that turn 1, pick up an extract, place back to safety sort of power train as well. So okay, no, it sounds good. I'm taking notes. Sad about the Rhino meta splash, but we can forgive that.
We move on. He's done pretty well for affiliated characters. So the way we set up is kind of almost like 2Es, and my goal is to get Dr. Voodoo versus Nightcrawler, because Nightcrawler I found can be very tanky, but not against Mystic, because he doesn't get his extra dice.
He doesn't get his extra dice. He's only rolling 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So I managed to get that kind of matchup. He goes with Nightcrawler first and does what you do, walks up, picks up an extract and bumps a bit to safety. There's no terrain around for him to be stealthy round, which was good. And then I go with my grunts and grab his middle scroll. Now, remember, the building was blocking, so I'm able to get it without being pushed towards him. I am pushed, but I'm pushed laterally. So that kind of helps.
Nice.
And Nick picks up my home scroll and doesn't get pushed. So I've been able to get that, despite him having priority, get 2 of the scrolls before he's got 2.
And you've gotten the 2 central ones, so you've got a little bit more flexibility in where you need to go, and you've sort of forced him to go to the wings, haven't you? You know,
Yeah.
Nightcrawler's got one of the sides. If he's going to go parity on those extracts, he's got to go to the other side, and hopefully they're not part of that Charles Xavier reroll bubble.
Exactly. And so Kitty grabs, I think it's Kitty that grabs the other scroll on the next
Makes
turn.
a lot of sense.
And then there's kind of a bit of movement, but this is when the Professor X train can start rolling, because he's able to pass a power over to Beast. Beast double moves to the middle and throws my grunts towards his characters.
Nice.
And Rhino then attacks my grunts, dazes them, but he places before damage is dealt. So he one-shots them. I get to place the extract, but then because he's not moved yet, he's able to go and pick up the extract. So despite there being this building in the way, my grunts have not quite done their job, and he's still able to go 3-1 up on extracts. So unfortunately, at the end of round 1, I'm down 3-5.
That's nice. I think that's a really nice combination with both Beast and Rhino. You can sort of do it with both of them, but the fact that they both can place off their attacks, using one to toss the extract holder back allows the other one to hopefully take it.
Yeah, it was a nice play that, takes a lot of power, and it also actually put Beast out of position, because that's basically what X-Men do, is they try and go up an extract. He's figured that it's worth it, and he's got the score lead on me early.
Definitely. Beast is in a difficult position, but he's not the one holding the extract,
No.
so I think he can be fairly confident. That sounds like a great play.
Yeah, I should have said as well, I'm using the Invaders leadership, so I'm getting the rerolls from Namor in defense. So my grunts suddenly actually can become relatively tanky, because they essentially get to reroll. If they're next to Namor and Nick, they can reroll 1 dice 3 times.
Wow.
So you can, including skulls, so you can almost guarantee a success, or as close to a guaranteed success as MCP dice go. But that's not good enough against Rhino. So yeah, I'm 3-5 down. Round 2 starts, and Namor, his charge is online. He's up against Kitty Pryde. I'm thinking I can charge in here, double tap her, and steal her objective. Unfortunately, Namor fails to daze Kitty Pryde. I think I only get like 3 through on her off my 2 attacks. And actually, I think I don't even get... I think the first attack is the one that whiffs, and that's the one that gets the stagger off if I roll well enough. So I don't even daze Kitty. So I've gone for this play to try and take her extract off her. I don't even think she has enough power to buff her dice at this stage. So that's a bit of a shame, because it would have been really nice if Namor could have grabbed that extract.
Yeah, that's rough. And it's a bit of a risky move, because it's probably put Namor a little bit out of position.
Yeah, I'm personally not too worried about Namor there, because he's not got really hard hitters, and Namor is also not holding anything at this stage, so at least it puts pressure on his back point. But then on the other side of the B, so I kind of had this decision, do I go with Namor or Voodoo? I decided to go with Namor, so he then goes with Nightcrawler, who's against Voodoo, and he essentially just wants to get as far away from Voodoo as possible, which is understandable. So he attacks Voodoo, then places range 2 off Voodoo, then he places himself across the map, so he's now going laterally across the map.
Great.
And that gets him in range 3 of my Spectacular Spider-Man, who he then attacks to place next to Spectacular to get as far away from Voodoo as possible.
Nice.
And in doing so, he spikes against Spectacular and dazes, one-shot Spectacular.
That's very powerful. And the movement he's done in that, because, I mean, the potential movement, if it's his builder, that's a range 3 attack into Voodoo, to then place maybe range 2 the other side of him, to then maybe place either range 2 or range 3 to get to the other side of the objectives, and then to attack, if it's the builder, to move the range 3 and then range 2 the other side of Spectacular. Wow.
Yeah, the movement was bonkers. And he did this essentially to run away from Voodoo. Voodoo was terrifying him, because not only can he really affect Nightcrawler, but he can also make him drop his objective.
Nice, yeah.
It was a really nice play, and he got the big spike that really helped him, because without that spike, Spectacular is then able to do something against Nightcrawler.
Exactly. And it's given him loads of power ready to, keep moving around the table / maybe get his spender off.
Yeah, this is kind of suddenly become quite a tricky round, because on the right, I've essentially got Agent Venom and Voodoo facing off against Okoye, which is not a good trade-off. No objectives either, no extracts.
Oof.
And so I decide, okay, I've got to cut my losses here. I'm going to take a bit of a points lead, but I've got to get Voodoo to where he can be influential next turn. So I just double move Voodoo towards the left side of the board where Nightcrawler's just gone, where all the objectives are.
Right. Okay. Smart move. It's forcing him to be like, right, go with Nightcrawler or I'll go with Voodoo.
And yeah, Agent Venom is now facing Okoye, and Beast comes to help Okoye out. And what does Beast do? He double moves and throws Venom off the point. So that side of the board, while he's got 5 threat against my 4 threat, he's able to score those 2 points this turn. It's been a bit of a tough round for me. I'm now down 11-5. So essentially, he's able to keep 3 of the extracts, but also get one of the points up on me on the right-hand side of the B map of the Infinity Formula. And that was where actually him having 6 characters to my 5 was a bit of a nightmare for me, because he was able to go last with Beast. So he could basically, Beast is in the middle of the table, he could move to any of the Bs and throw someone.
Yeah.
So he clearly thought about this from round 2. You can tell he's had 60 games.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds so well orchestrated.
Yeah.
It sounds, things that you think have only happened because they benefit the round that they're in seems to be paying dividends in round 2 as well. Like the flexibility of Beast being in the middle of the table. That's really, really good play. Really good vision.
So I'm under the pump here. If it goes that badly again, the game will end this round. So round 3 kicks off, and Kitty at this stage has 1 health left. And I've got Namor against Rhino and Kitty. So I Builder and Spender into Rhino, because, Namor ignores his damage reduction. So a couple of good dice rolls, and Rhino goes down. Unfortunately, Namor again doesn't do enough on Rhino, but what he does do with his Spender is he pushes Kitty away and does the 1 damage to her.
Great.
So that means Kitty's down, I'm able to pick up her extract, but having not been able to finish Rhino off has meant that Rhino can then attack Namor, and he dazes Namor. So there's a bit of give and take. I think Namor had taken a couple of hits the last turn, so he wasn't kind of completely healthy, but yeah, I was really hoping that Namor would come good and get Rhino, because, Rhino is a character that Namor can chew through quite effectively. I think he then kind of, again, runs Nightcrawler further away from Voodoo, so he's forcing Voodoo to move, but I'm also kind of pinning Nightcrawler into a corner. This is all on the left-hand side, I should say. So most of the action is happening on the left. We then have Agent Venom facing off against the other 2 on the right.
Right. And all the extracts are on this left-hand side now then?
Yes, all of the extracts. Apart from Nick's, Nick has kind of gone into the middle. Yeah, Nick had taken a few hits, so he's taken a bit of damage, but he's still holding my extract. So I decide to move him away from the action towards the Beast side, but not in a place where Beast can really affect him. The big play of this turn after that opening gambit is Professor X goes and he Spenders into Voodoo. His, what's it called? Mind Trick.
Yeah, yes. Mental suggestion.
Mental suggestion. This is quite risky because Voodoo is rolling 6 Mystic defense against this.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't seem like a confident target to get the move.
And I think the idea is because he needs Voodoo out there, because Voodoo's been generating power. He's got enough power to be able to steal from someone. Yeah, annoying that he gets the 1 damage through he needs. So he basically is able to move Voodoo away, which forces me then to again have to double move with Voodoo. I'm in a bit of trouble here, so I just have to spend the power to make Rhino drop his objective. So Rhino doesn't get his objective, but I'm not close enough because of that mental suggestion to pick it up. But in doing so, the round ends. I think on the right-hand side, Agent Venom managed to daze Okoye, so we're evens over there. But I've not done very well in catching up, and I'm now 7-15 down. So Voodoo has managed to keep the game going for another round.
Just by
making him drop it, but he annoyingly can't pick it up. So yeah, so I'm in a tough spot. But also, yes, he's got a big points lead, and I'm in trouble. But I think there's still a way to victory here, because his characters are quite injured at the moment. I've dazed Kitty, but Nightcrawler's taken a bit of damage. Rhino's taken a bit of damage. So if I can get some big turns going, then I can claw it back, because there's enough points on the table for me to catch up here.
Yeah, well, but you've really got to now lean into that attrition. Fortunately, you've got the right characters to do it.
Yeah. And so for the 3rd round in a row, I go with Namor first. And 3rd time lucky, he delivers. Namor dazes Rhino and with the push is able to daze Nightcrawler.
Oh.
He double spenders into Rhino, and because there's a handy bit of terrain, I can push Nightcrawler twice into the terrain. So I can essentially guarantee the daze on Nightcrawler and get 2 7-dice attacks into Rhino. So Namor shows up when I needed him. He's able to pick up Nightcrawler's objective. Kitty then goes, and Kitty picks up the objective that Rhino had dropped, but I'd positioned it in such a way that she had to move to get it before she could run away.
Right.
So she doesn't get the long move to get away.
Yeah. Hopefully she's just relying on her place.
Exactly. Then I move Voodoo. I basically chase Kitty with Voodoo and force Kitty to drop the extract. I can't pick it up with Voodoo, but it means that guaranteed 1 point is now no longer available to either of us. So I'm feeling like I've got in a better position. I have a bit of a trick up my sleeve as well, which I think Antstones doesn't see coming. So we get to the end of the round. Professor X is holding something, and I have a bunch of attacks. I have 2 attacks with Spectacular, and I have 2 attacks with Nick. And I have to go against his Mystic Defense, and he's holding the one objective that would score him out, because on the other side, Agent Venom is 1-on-1 with Beast on a point. They're both healthy, so they're scoring. Okoye is on a point, which would get him, but this is where I have my ace up my sleeve, because I've still got the Shield-Mobile. So what it allows me to do is Nick can double tap Professor X and Shield-Mobile onto Okoye's point, where Okoye is injured and Nick is healthy. So this is my route back into the game. So Spidey goes, and he does a big spike first. And Professor X, Xavier's Dreams.
Right, okay.
So I knew that card was in there. I knew I needed something.
And it's come out on the first attack, so job done.
It's come out on the first attack, so that's good. Spidey then goes again. I think he does some damage, not much. But he's then got the power to throw him into something.
Perfect.
So he's taken a bit of damage.
Yeah, and is Xavier on his healthy or injured side?
He's healthy.
Okay, so a little bit of a bigger pool of damage do you need to...
But I think he'd taken maybe 1 or 2 damage already, so I think I need to do 5 damage off 4 attacks with Xavier's Dream online.
Sure.
I was always rolling against the Mystic. Nick has a double tap, and I get 1 off. 1 off dazing him.
Nick, even with... He's got the pierce, right?
He's got the pierce. So Nick fails me. He's got the win. I Shield-Mobile, and it turns out that my cunning plan is about a millimeter shy.
Oh no!
So actually, maybe it's good that I didn't daze Professor.
Yeah,
X,
that would have been heartbreaking. That would have been really heartbreaking.
Because he was looking at it, and he was like, "There's no way you can. Even if you daze Professor X, it doesn't matter because Okoye's got my point."
Yep.
And I'm like, well.
But
alas. So the game ends. He scores 2 VPs that round. I score 4, and it ends 17-11. So he gets the win. He's played this really well. You can tell he's played a lot of Professor X. But yeah, I couldn't quite claw it back. I think if my maths is right, I would have got it back to 15-13 if that had all come off, which then it's game on because I've got the objectives.
Yeah. He does have priority though, so
he does have priority. It would have been very interesting to see what would have happened, but yeah, I was gutted not to be able to push it to a 5th round. But it was a great game. Professor X did all his Professor X tricks. I hate to say it, Curtis, but Rhino was really good. He's really good with Professor X.
Yeah, maybe he is the one. Maybe he is the one. He's yeah. Well, okay. What I would like to, I've got one question. So it sounds like a really good game against an opponent who really knows his roster well.
Yeah.
A good one to set you up on. Okoye, what was the thinking?
So Okoye is for the bodyguard.
Sure.
So I think for this game, he just needed a 2 that was relatively tanky to sit on a point. But his logic was that Okoye comes in when you need to go down the middle. Because she can just walk into the middle of the map and bodyguard and pass power around.
Yeah.
So it's, whereas for you, Wong kind of does the healing, she does the blocking.
And actually that gives you maybe a little bit more agency because it's stopping an attack. So it's before the fact rather than after the fact.
Exactly.
And Wong sometimes means you can't get heal off because someone's dazed, right?
Exactly. So I think actually, Curtis may be looking forward. You should try Okoye out because I liked his logic.
I'm all ears. I like that.
Yeah. One other thing I would say in this game, which I made a mistake on, is I should not have played the Invaders' leadership. I should have played Nick Fury's leadership. Because the likelihood is that I was going to go down early. or at least at some point, because X-Men have such strong game, and he ended up dazing a lot of my characters. So actually getting some points back could have been crucial. Like I said, if I'd got my plays off, it would have been 13-15. But say I'd got 2 VPs back from the leadership, that would have been 15 all, and it's a different game.
Absolutely. But also, it might have meant that it didn't come down to you needing both today's Xavier and get on to the point that Okoye is on. It might just be that only one of those needed to happen for you to win the game if you had been chasing it in that way. Or it might have forced him to play a little bit differently, a little bit more aggressively, because his being up on extracts wasn't getting him the points lead that he needed. So yeah, that's a really interesting take.
It was a fantastic game, and it was a really good one to learn different things. I mean, like I said, I played against Professor X a lot, and he didn't do anything that really surprised me, but what he did was just be very effective, very efficient with what he was doing, and played by Anstones, who's clearly a fantastic player. And I think actually he went either 6-0 or 5-1 across the weekend, so he did really well with
well
a leadership which is undervalued.
Absolutely. Congratulations to him. Obviously, commiserations to you, Archie. Just briefly, how did the rest of the team get on? What was the overall score for the team?
Yeah, so we lost round 1, unfortunately. So Finley won his game with his Cabal.
Well done.
The rest lost. So we were playing against one of the really good Swedish teams, Derby, early on, which was a shame that we lost the Derby.
Big Scandinavian Derby.
But yeah, I mean, their team did very well across the event. So I think there was no shame in losing to them round 1.
Absolutely. I mean, they're all top players in Sweden. So, well, congratulations to them. Commiserations to you guys. Let's go into round 2. Right, so we're into round 2. What team did you guys get placed up against, and who did you find yourself facing across the other side of the table?
So we had another derby, and it was another Swedish derby. So Sweden v Denmark, round 2. Obviously, we'd both lost our first round, so we're both looking to get back on the horse as a team, and me individually. And I think I'm paired against the team captain, who's called Jakob. And he is playing Spider-Foes/Criminal Syndicate. So it's a team I know very well. So I was one of the last to get paired, and there were 2 boards left. And we were on some of the boards which were up for prizes on the boards.
Oh, amazing.
And so there were some fantastic boards. And I got to choose the board. And so I was stoked because I got to choose this amazing building site board. I'm not sure how happy Jakob was for playing on it because it was very dense terrain. But I just wanted to play on an awesome board. Yeah, maybe I'll just describe the board for you because it's essentially there were these huge cranes and diggers. There was the big building. I don't think it was the Fisk building, but it was something equivalent. There were lots of barriers around. There was just some cool bits and pieces. But it was incredibly densely packed. So it was actually quite an interesting challenge because big-based models, Hulk-sized base models would have struggled.
I love that. I like these big pieces of terrain, and if it looks fantastic as well, what an experience! What an immersive way to play MCP.
Yeah, and I'm playing against Spider-Foes and Criminals, so it's right in their backyard, So I win priority, and I go for my extracts, and we draw Cosmic Cubes and Scoundrels. So 2 F maps, 10 points, 10 juicy points on the board. So it's quite an interesting pair to start with, and he goes for 17 threat. So I go with my S.H.I.E.L.D. roster of 17 threat of Nick Fury, Agent Venom, Dr. Voodoo, Spectacular Spider-Man, and 2 threat Black Widow. So we've got Dr. Voodoo's back again. So it's actually a really similar list, but I've just swapped Namor for Black Widow. I've upgraded.
As you do, but 20 threat to 17 threat.
Yeah. He's not surprised me here because Jakob, instead of going for Spider-Foes, goes for Criminals. Right. And he goes Kingpin, Criminals on Scoundrels. So it's Kingpin, Rhino, Lizard, Shocker, and Miles. So it's a very solid Criminals on Scoundrels list.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting one because I'm aware that I'm going to go down on Secures early because of him counting as double. But I'm also thinking I can go up on Extracts because of my Extract game.
And I wonder if that is the play, isn't it? Because there's no point in trying to go one-on-one like you would normally on Scoundrels because you're just playing into his game plan.
Yeah.
It's all about the extracts for you here.
And also you'll have noticed I've learned from my mistakes and I've gone for Nick Fury's leadership.
Ah, of course. Yes, because Namor's dropped out.
So I'm aware that I'm probably going to go down on points, but as long as I can stay in the game, I feel like I'm at an advantage late game.
But, I mean, I don't want to hopefully this isn't a spoiler. Is his team set up to be getting the daisies that you sort of need to get that going?
I mean, so my logic here is my grunts die to anything,
Brilliant. Yes, of
and
course.
they give me the VP. So I go with Nick first, and I dive the middle, grab the middle point with my grunts. They just have to stand there, and Nick grabs the back left. So I've managed to get my extract game up. He then goes with his lizard, and he dives the opposite back point to my Nick Fury. So he goes, grabs my extract, and sits on the point. So his thinking is he's doing the classic lizard play where he's hoping he survives. So the end of the board state, apart from that lizard side, is that Voodoo goes into the middle, which ends up being against Rhino and Shocker. I think this is perfect for me because neither of them like Mystic. And also, he's got like 2 characters on my 1, which against criminals, I think is a good trade for me because he's winning that point with just 1 character.
Absolutely.
So his Miles and Kingpin are on his back too, and now I've got Black Widow and Agent Venom against Lizard, and I get 1 off dazing Lizard with the pair of them. They both end up on that point, but Agent Venom is excellent against them because he ignores the Scoundrel's cover. But yeah, I get 1 off dazing Lizard, which does mean that because of the cubes, Lizard dazes at the end of round 1.
Right. Okay. So he's scoring the point, but he's put himself in a more vulnerable position.
Exactly. Unfortunately, at the end of round 1, I'm down by 3-6. So it's that Lizard dive getting the back point being the big thing for him, which, you know, I said at the start, this is kind of what I expected to happen. I expected to go down early. I've got my contingency in Nick Fury.
Yeah, but it's quite a big points lead, and
It is.
It's a shame you couldn't have taken down Lizard.
Yeah.
Because obviously that puts you just 1 down. But at least it's set up, hopefully, for round 2 to claw some of those points back.
Yeah. But start of round 2, I have a bit of a conundrum to make. So Lizard has just dropped an objective, and I really want that because I don't want Lizard picking that up. So I decide to go with a kind of boring round 2 opener, and I pick up that extract with Black Widow, and I double move her. So I move her to safety, and my thinking as well is that she's in a position now where I could potentially, not this round, but in a future round, shield mobile her onto one of the other points. So essentially I have a pass with her that she can then influence later in the game. This is my logic. And she's my 2 threat, scoring 1 point a turn. That's great.
Yep, that's great value.
Unfortunately, this does leave Agent Venom a little bit exposed, and he gets dazed by Lizard.
Wow, that's a great Lizard activation.
Yeah, so I'm a bit gutted because I thought Agent Venom might be able to tank a couple of Lizard attacks. You know, Lizard's not the biggest hitter, but no. I do get the VP for it, so I'm 4-6 now. But yeah, Agent Venom going down against Lizard's a bit of a shame. I was hoping for Agent Venom to be able to take him out in his activation. And annoyingly, I don't get the clapback activation that I needed with Voodoo, who just, for some reason, could not kill Shocker, despite the fact that, you know, Mystic is Shocker's weakness. But what he does do is he forces Kingpin to drop his objective.
Good.
So this means that he's losing an objective with Kingpin. So it was a shame that I couldn't quite daze Shocker. I'm trying to get these like dazes as quickly as possible.
Yep.
But I do benefit from Voodoo's activation. And that, I have to say, is one thing that I really like about Voodoo is that he can guarantee dropping objectives. So his worst activation is that. But yeah, I mean, with Lizard and Kingpin kicking about, he's got that right-hand side locked down pretty effectively because he's just able to throw people off points. And so the round ends. I've lost a bit of ground. It's 8-12 at the end of round 2.
Oof.
I've made up a VP, but then I've lost a few VPs.
And lost a few more as well. Oh, right, okay. It sounds like the criminal plan is going according to plan.
According to plan.
They're surviving on their points. They're keeping hold of extracts.
But now I've got a very powered up Agent Venom at the top of round 3. He pops off with a beam and he dazes Kingpin. I think almost one-shots him. Like, it's disgusting. Goodness. My intention with the beam was to try and chip a little bit of damage off Kingpin so that he was a bit easier for later and KO Lizard. But unfortunately, I failed to get Lizard. But fortunately, I get Kingpin. So I get something. You get something,
yeah. It would have been good to take Lizard out as well, though, wouldn't it? Because at this point, there's a lot of points on the table, and he only needs 4 of them.
Exactly, yeah. So Lizard not going down was a bit of a shame because that was the goal of the activation with Agent Venom, but we've got some return in taking out Kingpin. Nick is then attacked in the center, but I have another crafty play. I think he's attacked by Rhino, who then goes and sits on his objective, but I'm able to iron the Sky out of danger. So he survives on 1, and then I'm able to sit rep him with Spider-Man back onto the point.
Great.
So he essentially flees, waits until the danger's passed, and then gets back on the point. So I'm able to kind of mitigate losing points there.
Nice. Well, these are the tactics cards, movement shenanigans that we talked about in the previous episode.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're paying out here.
Yeah, that was really important because otherwise he's getting a big runaway lead with the Kingpin leadership. Voodoo is in the middle, gets staggered by Shocker, but despite this, Voodoo is able to shake the stagger and steal off Miles. So because Kingpin's been dazed, he gets his brother Daniel token back, and then he gives it to Miles, who then drops his objective and can't pick it up. Miles then in his turn is able to daze Voodoo, but because he's had to use all his actions in doing so, he doesn't have the position to pick up the extract. So Voodoo going down is a shame, but I get my VP.
Yes, nice.
So at the end of the round, I've had a bit of a swing, and it's 15 all.
Wow, that's a huge swing. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many points on the table, so it was always, possible. But given there were so many points on the table, you would have thought he'd have been in a position to be able to protect 4 of them. I mean, he still protected 3, but the fact that you've then been able to sort of match him, that's a huge play.
And it was massive because basically my extract game is starting to get there, and the leadership is kicking in.
Yeah. How many VPs have you got from it now? Is it 2?
So that's my second VP, yeah.
Strong.
End of round, 15 all. Going into round 4, I have priority. So suddenly the plan is back on where I've just tried to daze characters, and now he's got 2 characters dazed and a couple that are looking a little, well, Shocker's looking a little ropey, and Miles is a bit in no man's land because he had to go and daze Voodoo.
Of course.
So it's 15 all at the top of round 4, and Agent Venom goes, and my thinking is, if I can daze Shocker, who is the easiest of the lot to daze, then that's 1 character out, and then he's got 2 injured and 2 healthy. And this is where I needed Agent Venom to show up, and I think you can tell from the tone of my voice, he bowled it.
Oh, Agent Venom.
Shocker had 3 health left on him, and I had 2 attacks into him. He doesn't get cover against Agent Venom, and he couldn't do the business. I don't think he got any damage through. So I actually needed 1 damage to then be able to throw something. So basically I needed 1 damage to guarantee
the power gen to get the throw to then do what you needed to do.
So that's a big let off for Jakob at the top of the round. Because if I can get Shocker there, I'm in a very strong position.
Yep, absolutely.
So for my turn, Fury is able to go and grab. He walks into the middle, and this extract that Miles couldn't pick up, Fury then brings in the grunts to pick that up. So Fury's got 1 health left, but he's able to do what he needed to do and get the grunts in before he eventually gets taken down.
And that's only a daze, so the grunts will stick around holding whatever they're holding.
Yeah, exactly. So I was actually a point down going into this round. It was 14-15. But at this stage, when Nick dazes, I get the VP. So it's now 15 all.
Sure, that makes sense.
So I'm now at 15 all, despite Nick going down. Rhino, however, is now holding 2 cubes. He was holding 1 before, and he was able to take 1 off Nick Fury. But I have my Voodoo stood in the middle. Happy days, right? I think Voodoo at this stage is sitting on 4 power exactly. So it's 4 power to drop, and so I'm thinking I need 2 power to be able to pick up those cubes. And I'm thinking if I can get that in 1 attack, I can then move on to the back point, or one of the points, and kind of stop that. And I see a Shocker who's got 3 health left, still after Age of Venom, or 2 health left, whatever it was.
Who doesn't like mystic attacks?
Who doesn't like mystic attacks. And it's been the story of the day, but Voodoo whiffs.
He doesn't even get his power from... Does he get power if he rolls skulls or something?
So he has 3 sources of power from his attack. He has normal power generation. If he rolls wilds, he saps power from his opponent. And if he rolls a skull, he gains a power. And I think he rolled a skull. So I get 1 power. So what that means is I'm able to steal off Rhino, but I can only pick up 1 cube.
Is that not enough? and then put the other one in no man's land?
But annoyingly, Shocker's still got to activate.
Right.
So Shocker is the last activation of the game, and he essentially moves, picks up the cube, and then moves onto the point that I've moved Voodoo onto. And so he's able to get that point off because Shocker's still healthy.
Of course.
And so unfortunately, I can't quite manage to cling on, and I lose the game 17-18.
Oh, well, I mean, it's an incredible comeback from 12-8 down.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds like you've really learned from game one, where you know if you're going to be chasing points, the shield leadership can be a really, really powerful tool in that. You know, the points that you've gained from that throughout the game have kept you in it, really.
Yeah.
And to lose by 1 point. Oh, I mean, to the listeners, most of Archie's practice games, he lost by 1 point.
Yeah.
So to have it happen again, well done for making a good game of it. Sounds like a very tough game against a very reliable Kingpin criminal syndicate.
That was it. That was the difference, is that the reliability of the Kingpin leadership was really good. And I felt good going into the final round because I had priority. And so I thought that I could be able to daze Shocker. Because Shocker ended up being his MVP, because he basically stood in the middle and just didn't die.
How impactful was his shock bubble in terms of reducing your effectiveness?
Yeah, so Voodoo was the main recipient of it. He was rolling consistently 4 Mystic attacks. So Voodoo wasn't as effective in his attacks as he could have been.
Of course. And less likely to get those wild, less likely to get those skulls, which,
Yeah.
you know, lots of sources of power, but just that one rule is like reducing your chances of getting any of them. So yeah, very, very strong.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a really interesting game on a really cool board, and the terrain played a massive part in kind of where you could go.
It sounds like a very criminal syndicate table as well. Construction site.
It was very Criminal Syndicate. It was very thematic.
I bet that looked fantastic. Well done to your opponent there. Well done
Yeah.
to another Swedish team, proving their worth, proving their mettle. You know, from the Swedish victory of 2023. So I won't make you reminisce about it too long.
Well, I did lose the battle, but we won the war. So
Oh,
our team ended up
fantastic.
getting on the board. I think we got 3-2. Me and Stefan, our captain, lost, and the other 3 got the W. So as a team, we're 1-1, but unfortunately, individually, I'm 0-2.
Well done to the team. Well done to Team Denmark. Venom going into round 3, 1-on-1. Let's go find out what happened. So we're creeping towards the end of day 1 of the WTC 2024. Your team is 1-1, so you know this could be anyone that you get paired up against. Who is it? Who is the team that you get paired up against, and who do you find yourself facing?
So yet another derby, but it's not a Swedish derby this time. It's Finnish derby.
Right. Okay.
So we're up against one of the Finland teams. And apologies again, I can't remember the name of the team. There was a couple of Finnish
butchering
teams.
names left, right, and centre
Yeah.
on Cable's Conquest today.
I know. But I'm paired up against Timo, and Timo is playing Guardians of the Galaxy. I haven't actually played against Guardians a huge amount. I hear a lot about them, you know, there's a lot of talk about them, but I've not played against them a huge amount.
Since the Ghost Rider nerf, they seem to have dropped off a cliff in their play. I always
Yeah.
thought they might be like X-Men, where there's lots of popular characters and people would just play them regardless, but definitely seen a slight downturn in their uptake.
Yeah, for sure. So we roll priority, and I get priority. And I go with my extracts. So you can see a theme. I'm thinking extracts are quite good
Of course.
to try and score as fast as possible.
And I wonder if with their Guardians team, their extracts are a little bit more slow scoring. They want to be
Yeah.
shooting you off the table. So
Exactly. And we draw. So I draw cosmic cubes again
great.
and meteors.
Oh, okay. Well, we've talked about pay to flips, haven't we? And your team's ability
Yeah.
to do them. Interesting.
If you remember from the last episode, dear listeners, we had a particular tech piece for pay to flips, and I'll spoil it now. It's 17 threat because it has to be, and he gets played. So this was a funny moment for me because I was 0-2. I was a bit disappointed, you know, especially after the last loss. I just lost. But also I had in my head I was 0-5 for the weekend because I lost my 3 games on the Friday night. So I was under a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, it's been a long weekend for you. Wow,
Yeah.
yes. I hadn't quite put into context that you were 0-5 at this point.
Yeah. I pick Namor, Spectacular Spider-Man, and Black Panther Chosen of Bast. And I have in my hands Nick Fury and Black Widow 2 threat. And then I think this hasn't been working. What's going wrong? You know what? Screw it. I'm going to play She-Hulk.
Wow.
So I put my 4 and 2 away, and She-Hulk comes in. So I go 4 wide.
You've got all these extracts on the table.
It was one of those where it's madness or it's genius, depending on how the outcome is.
Absolutely.
So he brings along quite an interesting Guardians list, actually. So he has his Star-Lord, his Rocket, and his Nebula. Pretty standard Guardians. And then he brings along Cable and Black Bolt.
Right, okay.
So quite an interesting one.
It's 10 threat baked into those last two characters. So, right, fair enough.
So my thinking, and actually looking across the table at his team, I feel my thinking might be all right. We talked about this before. The She-Hulk Namor bubble is actually quite tanky against energy attacks. And Guardians famously have a lot of energy attacks.
Yep, and he's brought 2 characters in Black Bolt and Cable who are just bringing more energy attacks.
Exactly. And so I'm able to kind of have this bubble of She-Hulk bodyguarding Namor, and She-Hulk's rolling 4 defense dice, re-rolling 2. Additionally, She-Hulk's quite good on this pay to flip because she's rolling 4 energy defense. So this is my logic going in.
And am I right in saying she's a medium move as well? So she's actually quite fast to jump between them, and obviously has the power to flip them too.
Yeah. So top of round 1, I have a nice simple play. I have priority. Namor grabs the middle cube and comes back towards my team so that he's kind of activating the bubble as early as possible. He kind of grabs his cubes, I grab mine, and I save She-Hulk for last. Unfortunately, there was a bit of terrain in the way, and I thought I'd get away with it. My thinking was that She-Hulk could get onto my home meteor, flip it, and then move to the middle meteor and flip that. Unfortunately, because of where the terrain was, she couldn't quite get onto my home meteor in one move. So in the end, she ends up staying on that meteor, flips it, and then is activating the Namor bubble that I've spoken about.
Sure.
There's a little bit of chip damage done to my characters from the long range, but nothing too serious, and the round 1 ends 4-all. So we're doing okay to start with. We're doing okay. I should say that Black Panther has gone on the left-hand side against Cable. Now, my thinking is because Black Panther doesn't allow opponents to re-roll their attack dice. So actually against Cable, he's a little more effective because Cable's just doing a 5 dice energy.
Well, against Guardians, he seems pretty good because the winging it tokens are irrelevant.
Yeah, generally that's true. And he's also picked up a cube. So I actually decide there's no really good options for me. And I don't really want to test the dice gods, test my theory against the dice gods. So I actually decide I'm going to go with Black Panther first. And he double moves from left to right. So he has a very low impact turn, but it means that all of my extracts are now in the Namor bubble where I want them. And so it means that Cable is kind of less impactful because he can't just automatically activate and daze Black Panther.
Sure.
He then basically just sits back and he guns at my character. So I eventually end up going with She-Hulk. And I make a slightly bold play. So she moves into the middle. She throws Black Bolt medium. I'm just trying to keep Black Bolt as far away as possible. Flips the middle. And then I've got a decision to make. Do I spend her activation just whacking like a 2 threat? And I actually decide instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to shield Mobile. So I shield Mobile onto the point that Cable's on. I punch Cable and then I flip that point. So now I have all 3 of the meteors, but She-Hulk is now a little bit vulnerable against Cable.
Of course.
Cable then pops off and does 10 damage to her in 1 activation. So it's a bold play from me, which didn't quite work out.
But you say that, you still got the points. Yes, She-Hulk's taken a lot of damage there, but you've got ways to heal that. And, it's not guaranteed she'll take that damage again.
Exactly. And so Cable does end up flipping that point, but he takes the damage for it. So Cable's actually a little bit vulnerable now. So the 10 damage was more than I was expecting, but we move on. And Namor is able to kind of follow She-Hulk across the board, and he dazes Rocket, gets the bubble back up, but now more centrally. And he also battlefield medicines She-Hulk. So She-Hulk's now taken less damage.
Great. But has all the power in the world.
And has all the power in the world. The final action of the turn is that Spectacular Spider-Man is dazed by a Star-Lord, but Star-Lord's not really able to get any of the points. So he's clearly going for this like attrition,
Yes.
which makes sense with Guardians. But at the end of the round, despite that, I'm 7-6 up. So I've
Strong.
got 2 of the meteors and I think 1 of the cubes. I think some of the cubes are on the ground.
Yeah. So you've been able to maintain that points lead, and it sounds like positionally you're in a much stronger position now, even if you have taken some damage.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was thinking was with that She-Hulk move is whether I'm going to just turtle up and try and hold 2 of them or whether I'm actually going to try and impact. And my worry is that Cable can just like place and shoot me.
Yeah.
So if I ignore him, he's not ignoring me. So Cable actually only had 1 health left. So Cable is dazed by the cube.
Great.
So he's now been flipped. Now at the top of rounds 3, Namor patches up She-Hulk.
See, I foreshadowed this.
Yeah,
Her taking 10 damage doesn't feel that bad. It's when she takes 20 in a whole turn from multiple characters' activations.
Yeah.
With those big health pools, you bring patch up, don't you? And with S.H.I.E.L.D., you've got battlefield medicine as well. So she's essentially 28.
Exactly. So it's essentially 8 health that she's able to get back. Namor activates as well, and I decide I just want to try and take bodies off the board, and so I attack Rocket, and Namor's having a bit of a shocker. He whiffs against Rocket.
Ugh.
Rocket is alive on 1, which, for a 3 health dude.
Yeah, I know he gets his auto cover, but surely you're rolling enough dice to push through that.
Yeah, and Rocket then obliterates Black Panther. Like, just totally gets him. So that 2 threat surviving against Namor was pretty painful. Namor is then also dazed by Nebula, and She-Hulk's turn ends up being pretty ineffective against Cable again. Like, she had a lot of power. I was hoping to take him off the board, and just can't quite do it. I think after a poor first attack, I decide the better thing to do is just move her and throw Black Bolt. So I'm just trying to keep Black Bolt as far away as possible. So yeah, She-Hulk's not had the most impact in attacks, but she's taking a lot of heat, which is kind of what she's aimed to do. So it's not a good round in terms of damage taken. I've had 2 characters dazed, but I still have the advantage on points. I'm still 9-8 up on points.
It's really slowing down the scoring, isn't it?
Yeah, Guardians have decided that killing is what they've got to do. And so they aren't able to flip the points and do that. So they prioritize the killing. And it's working for them at this stage. So 9-8 at the top of round 4, and Namor goes. And this is where Namor, he's had a bad previous turn, but he can turn it around because he's got quite a bit of power. And he's got a great spender, which basically guarantees a KO on Rocket. So he does that. He attacks Nebula. He dazes Nebula with his spender, but also with the chip damage from his spender, he's also able to get Rocket.
Great.
Yeah, it's only the 2 threats, but that's 2 sets of good attacks that I've been able to get out of the way at the top of round 4 with Namor, which is really what I needed.
Absolutely.
He's done the bare minimum of what I needed him to do. She-Hulk then does kind of similar stuff to what she's been doing. I've actually used her in this one as a control piece, partly because her early dice weren't good enough to kind of get the ball rolling. But essentially, I use her as a control piece on Black Bolt. I keep throwing Black Bolt medium away. He keeps double moving back.
5 threats being having to move. Black Bolt is one of those where he's a bit of a turret.
Yeah, and the thing for She-Hulk is she's a 6 threat against the 5 threat, but she's in a better position.
Yep.
She's in the middle of the board, influencing. She's bodyguarding. She's taking hits. She keeps taking hits, and this kind of is a bit of a theme. Like, she throws Black Bolt away. Black Bolt walks into bodyguard range. But this is where She-Hulk comes in crucial because she is KO'd by Black Bolt, but she's KO'd herself to bodyguard Black Panther. Black Panther is alive and he's still got to activate, whereas She-Hulk doesn't. And I'm thinking at this stage, the game could end. So Spectacular Spider-Man and Black Panther are left on my side, my 2-3 threats, and he has Star-Lord left. Black Bolt has dazed She-Hulk. He's picked up 2 cubes. Star-Lord goes for Spectacular, but fails to daze Spectacular. But Star-Lord is holding 2 cubes. So he's got 4 cubes
between the 2 of them.
Between the 2 of them, and they're right next to each other. So this is why I'm thinking I just need activations, because all of the points are on these two characters,
Yep.
and She-Hulk's gone. So if She-Hulk KOs, I don't really care at this stage.
Yep. Yeah, she's not picking them up, is she? So
Spectacular goes, he's able to flip points whilst also doing a little bit of chip damage to Star-Lord. But now Black Bolt and Star-Lord are stood next to each other. They've got their 4 VPs stood next to each other. Black Bolt's holding 2 and Star-Lord's holding 2. And I'm like, okay, Black Panther, this is where I need you. He's been dazed, so he's got 4 power. He spenders target Star-Lord. Black Bolt's like, nah, I'll take it.
Yep.
And Black Panther dazes Black Bolt, gets his trigger to do a second attack, and dazes Star-Lord with it.
oh my goodness. So he's done it all in one action.
All in one action. And then he picks up 4 cubes and stands there. Like, what?
He doesn't need to do anything else at that stage, does he?
And that's the last action of the game. So
Yeah, that's a
I've
big
ended
swing.
up winning this one 18-11. I think I've got my points a little bit wrong earlier, but the final score is 18-11 with Black Panther holding 4 cubes.
Wow. Well, a man with new ideas is a madman until his ideas triumph.
So you said the points were slowing down quite significantly, and they were. And I think I got it slightly wrong. I think it was something like 9-11 on that previous turn. But there are, 8 points on the board, and I scored all 8 in that final round.
Yeah, that's mad.
And also I think Spectacular Spider-Man had been KO'd by this stage. She-Hulk had been KO'd. And Namor was on 1 health left, holding a cube.
He's down.
And Black Panther was on 4 health left, holding 4 cubes. So if there's another turn, I immediately lose because everyone gets KO'd. But because I'm holding all the cubes in the cleanup phase, we score the points, and I get my first win of the weekend.
Congratulations. We said it's either genius or madness. Turns out it's genius. It sounded like the synergy between She-Hulk being able to stand in the middle of the table and be your bodyguard was far more effective than what was a very similar plan from your opponent for Black Bolt to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because She-Hulk had more reliable displacement of her own.
Exactly.
She also had, a very reliable flip when she needed to.
Yeah.
And she had a great big health pool, meaning that, yes, obviously we like it when characters flip because then they're not going anywhere. And that's a big weakness of her. It means, though, within that single turn, she could probably take a few bodyguards. Most bodyguards take 1 or 2, and then that's it. They're done. Either they don't have the power to do it again, or they don't have the health to do it again. Whereas She-Hulk, you're spending 6 threat on it, but points-wise, in this crisis pairing, sounded pretty MVP.
Yeah, I was really pleased with my decision to go She-Hulk. It was a bold decision because part of it is that it's a bold decision because people think she's bad. But one of the reasons people think she's bad is because her defense isn't great. But in this roster, she gets 4 defense against most of Guardian's attacks. And she gets a reroll because of the leadership. And if she's stood next to Namor, she gets 2 rerolls. So suddenly she's actually quite defensive.
Including skulls.
Including skulls, exactly. Also, the other thing, which is her bodyguard with an aggressive. So, for example, Black Bolt's Master Punch, he can punch her, throw her away, and she'll just walk straight back. And she's stood next to whoever the character that needs bodyguarding.
Yep.
So I was really pleased because even though She-Hulk's attacks weren't fantastic, she's rolling big dice pools, so it could have been great. But they weren't great for this game. But she's reliably getting those points that she needs, the power that she needs to be able to keep Black Bolt away and bodyguard. And that was all she needed. And in the end, it was my 3 threats that did the damage that I needed. Black Panther coming in clutch.
Congratulations. I'm pleased you've broken the camel's back there and you've got your win. Congratulations. How did the rest of the team get on? How did the round go?
So unfortunately, we lost that round.
Oh, no.
So I think we lost it 2-3.
Okay, so very close still. So
very close game. I think me and Finley won, and then unfortunately the 3 native Danes lost. But
Finley's having a great tournament.
Yeah, Finley's flying with his cabal.
Yeah.
We're doing okay. 1 and 2 at a very competitive event. I'm pleased because I'm also 1 and 2. I finally got my win. I needed that win to get under my belt. Saturday evening would have been much sadder if I hadn't got it.
Brilliant. You had your 3 games day one. Obviously, you had 3 games on Friday. You're at 6 for the weekend now. Before we go into round 4, obviously that's the start of day 2. Did you get any in the evening on Saturday? I'm keeping a count here.
Yeah, so I managed to squeeze 2 games in.
2
So
games
I
in?
played
Oh,
against a couple of the
nice.
London guys. So I played against Lewis and I played against Angus. And I had a great game against Angus because it was S.H.I.E.L.D. v Hydra.
Oh, fantastic. Nice and themey. Nice. I hope you defeated Hydra, beat the fascists.
I didn't actually. It was
No.
I think I'd KO'd all his characters apart from his sleeper agent Hulk.
Oh no, he would have done the business.
Yeah.
Great. Well, excellent. Well, congratulations on your win. Let's go find out what happened at the start of day 2 in round 4. Gosh, I can't believe we're at the halfway stage already. Hopefully Saturday night has not been too heavy for you and the team, and you're there bright and early Sunday morning, ready for round 4. Who does the team get paired up against, and who do you see across the table from you?
I actually personally had quite a sensible night on Saturday. Went to bed at a reasonable time. My captain, on the other hand, stayed up until 4 a.m.
Wow.
drinking with the guys that had flown over from New York. And as it happened, we paired with the New Yorkers
Oh well,
at
good.
the top of round 4.
If one of your players is going to be a bit rough, then at least all of theirs are hopefully similarly as rough.
Exactly. So we pair up and I get paired against Eric. And he is playing Web Warriors. And now I've claimed that my shield list is actually really good against Web Warriors because of the extract shenanigans. So it's now time to put my money where my mouth is. We roll priority and priority goes to me. And I go for my secures because I don't really like his wide secures and his extracts aren't too dissimilar to mine. We draw Mutant Madman and Hammers. So he's a Hammers player in his Webs team. And we're guaranteed 18 threat. So I draw Nick Fury, Namor, Agent Venom, Black Widow, and after his stellar showing in yesterday's game, Black Panther. I'm also thinking Black Panther with the mystic attacks against Webs. It's pretty tasty.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want to reduce as many rerolls as they get because otherwise they're not going down.
Exactly. And I actually opt for Nick Fury's leadership because I'm thinking Webs, I don't need the defensive reroll against Webs, and I'm more likely to go down on points against Webs. And also I had him at the back of my head that aggressive is actually quite good because if Gwen pushes you off and does a damage, you can just walk back on. That's the logic I'm taking into this one. And his Webs is a very classic Webs. He's got Miles, Spectacular Spider-Man, Gwen, Black Cat, the unaffiliated affiliate Toad,
Of course.
and Agent Venom for a little bit of spice.
Nice. Okay. Well, he's thinking, I've got to bring a gun to a Hammers show, haven't I?
Exactly. So we've got an Agent Venom off, and interestingly, he has taken the gamble and has brought Clone Saga, which is a team tactics card that's a new team tactics card, which if you're against a same alter ego, you can spend 2 power with any Webs character and reroll any number of attack dice against that character. So my Agent
goodness,
Venom
and it's
was
paid
being
off.
targeted. It's paid off. It was a big play.
Fair play, Eric. Well done. I rate that a lot.
Yeah. So round 1 kicks off. I have priority. I know what I'm doing here. I've positioned Nick on one side, my grunts on the other, and they walk up and pick up a hammer each. So I've grabbed the 2 middle hammers immediately. So I'm already thinking I've got the advantage here on extracts. His Agent Venom picks up his home hammer. My Agent Venom picks up my home hammer. So we're kind of doing this dance. And he then is quite bold with his Gwen. We've had a few activations since then. We've both flipped our home mutants. But his Gwen is then quite bold and double moves onto my mutant and flips it. And she needs 2 successes off 3 dice. So it's a bold play. I mean, he's taking Clone Saga. Eric's a bold man. She gets it. So she flips my back right mutant Madman. But my Namor, who's facing off against his Toad on their back left, moves and flips his back left. So we've almost like turned the board.
Nice, yeah. You've both done your dives.
Yeah, but at the end of the round, I'm up 5-3 because of the hammers.
Strong. Which is not where you expected to be.
No, I'd hoped, but I wasn't sure if the grunts would survive.
Yeah.
And I have priority, and I see a juicy Gwen target next to my Agent Venom, who has got 6 dice builders.
Yeah, strong energy attacks.
So I double tap Gwen and do 1 damage
Ah,
off 2 builders.
oh my god. Well, I suppose does she have the similar symbiote where you don't get your crits and?
No, it's Gwen.
Oh, it's
Stacey.
regular Gwen. Sorry, I'm thinking
Regular
of Gwenum.
Gwen. Regular Gwen.
Of course.
So I decide, okay, that's a shame. And I then place myself, so I basically run away from his little pool of webs to try and avoid someone like Miles coming up and stealing my hammer easily. So I kind of put Venom in the middle of the board on my side. But yeah, I'm a bit frustrated because I thought I had a pretty good chance of taking out Gwen there. Gwen then goes and pulls my Agent Venom back towards them. And then his Agent Venom one-shots him. So 6 damage off a 6 dice builder. One-shots my Agent Venom.
Oh, all the rerolls happening, I assume, from Clone Saga.
No, not yet. Not yet. Because he doesn't have the power to play it yet.
Ah, of course.
And it's actually quite important that he one-shots him because he's had to web swing to get into range of my Agent Venom. So he then is able to move and pick up the hammer. So suddenly his Agent Venom is terrifying. He's got 2 hammers.
Yep.
And I'm thinking he's got to go. He's got all the points. Yeah, Fury then dazes Gwen.
Finally.
Bit late, but he's got him. But then he gets hit pretty hard by Miles and he's one off death. So I decide the time is right to shield mobile myself a little bit more to safety.
Right.
To avoid giving up another hammer.
Yeah.
Because I'm currently holding 2 hammers, one with Nick and one with the grunts. But I'm thinking the grunts might not last so long. So I need to keep hold of that hammer. But actually, in Nick's turn, the grunts do some damage to Toad and then they run away a little bit. So I'm trying to just keep a little bit away from Toad. But it's actually, it's quite an interesting board state because he's got Agent Venom in the middle with his 2 hammers. And he's got all of his team on the right-hand side and just Toad on the left. So he's got quite an imbalance there. Whereas I've got my Black Widow with Namor on the left against Toad and the grunts. So there's like 2 VPs, or 3 VPs really, there. But I have to say I was a bit worried about this Agent Venom running around with 2 hammers, so I decide I'm going to make a beeline for him with Namor. And so Namor charges into Agent Venom, and I'm thinking Namor's got, I think at this stage he needs to do like 2 damage to Agent Venom to then be able to do a spender. So he charges into Agent Venom. No damage. So I'm like, that's a shame because I could have done with it, but it's fine. I'll just do another attack, just get some damage so that next turn I can daze him. Second attack, no damage.
Oh, Namor.
So Namor is now stood in the middle of the board. He does do his advance that he can do after his attack, but he's stood in the middle of the board next to Agent Venom who's holding 2 hammers. I'm a little bit worried at this stage because Namor was my big play to get those hammers back. And to make matters worse, Black Panther is then dazed by Miles. However, this is where the pay-to-flip element comes in, and actually I have a big advantage here. Well, sorry, I don't have an advantage, but because I've had characters that have been dazed, he's then not able to catch up on the points because of he's having to sink attacks into where I'm getting dazed. So at the end of the round, despite it not going very well, I should have said that Black Widow is able to daze Toad, so it means that I can flip his point back as well, easily, nice. And I'm up 9-6 at the end of the round. So despite it not going well and me losing my extracts and losing a couple of characters, I've been able to hold on to 2 extracts and 2 mutants.
Strong.
So I'm pretty pleased with the way that the scoreboard has gone, despite the fact that I'm under pressure with these dice.
Yeah, it sounds like you're able to manage the webs a little bit. Like a lot of these characters aren't getting their VP efficiency that we all come to expect with webs. You know, it doesn't sound like Toad has really scored a point, and the other characters, it's one apiece rather than grab an extract, run away, hold secure.
Exactly. And I think that the whole being able to double move up to get the hammers in the middle has meant that Toad hasn't been able to do what he does and grab an extract and just run.
Yeah.
So top of round 3, my Agent Venom goes now with all the power in the world. And he gets one off dazing his Agent Venom. I think I do a beam into an attack into a size 3 throw. And he's just able to hang on. And so I'm like, oh dear. He's now got 2. Now he pops Clone Saga.
Yep.
He obliterates my Agent Venom and does 6 damage to Namor.
Oh gosh. What, leaving Namor on 1 or is Namor dazed?
Leaving Namor on 1. But I actually think looking at this, because he doesn't have enough power to do his spender and the clone saga, and I actually think this is where the clone saga slightly was a trap. Agent Venom is gone. He's going to get KO'd probably by this attack, but he's not holding any points. So he sinks this attack into Agent Venom. He one-shots him, granted, and then he gets to attack Namor. But I think, personally, I'm relieved because I'm thinking Namor is who I need to activate to get these hammers off Agent Venom.
Yeah. But does Namor survive that attack?
So Namor survives. Well, because he's done one attack into Agent Venom, he's then done one attack into Namor, and then he's web swung away.
Right. And he's got, if he'd prioritized.
I'm thinking he should have. I was thinking he double taps Namor and probably dazes him. But I get away with one. Namor chases after him because now Namor's got a bunch of power. So he charges in after Agent Venom. There's no damage off his builder.
No stagger.
No stagger. Well, Agent Venom's only got 1 health left. So I'm thinking,
oh, right.
I got it. So basically, he was in the middle of the board. Agent Venom has moved towards the madmen that I have. So Namor chases him and is able to kind of advance to the other side of Agent Venom. So he's a bit more safe. He's where my characters are and a bit further away from the other webs. Then I'm like, okay, what do I do here? I have a few options. So I have Battlefield Medicine online, which I would like to use. Agent Venom is holding 2 hammers and I have 5 power. So I can either do my spender and then pick up 2 hammers and then not Battlefield Medicine, or I can risk it and go for my builder and then be able to Battlefield Medicine. And I decide, looking at the way that the dice have gone, I'm like, I need these points.
Yeah.
So I decide to do my spender and pick up the 2 hammers. And I do get Agent Venom with my spender.
Good.
And also the spender guarantees dropping objectives. So that's my thinking. I've got the points off him, but Namor is in Struggle City.
Yeah. Is Namor the final activation of the round?
No, not by a long shot.
So he's still incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah, but his webs are further away. However, I think this is where he goes with his Gwen, and Gwen double taps my Black Panther. So Black Panther is off the table.
Right.
Which is pretty big.
Yeah, that's huge.
I'm a bit gutted because I thought, he might be able to tank some of these attacks a little bit more. But no, Gwen does the job. But now Gwen is stuck on that side, and it has given me the opportunity to then Battlefield Medicine Namor with Black Widow.
Coming in clutch.
Black Widow doesn't really do anything else with her turn, but that's enough.
Yep.
Fury is then chased by Miles and dazed, using Miles as spender, but then Miles doesn't have the power to pick up the hammer that he's holding. So Miles is a little bit stuck in the middle, having dazed Fury. And so at the end of that round, Fury has been dazed, Namor has been dazed, Black Panther has been taken off the table.
So Namor hasn't been dazed, has he? Because he's been healed up.
Oh, sorry, Namor hasn't been dazed, excuse me. Black Panther's KO'd, and Agent Venom is KO'd, and Black Widow's still healthy. I'm thinking, this is not how webs play.
Yeah, where are all my models gone?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, but I've swapped them for points.
Yeah, exactly. But despite not having many characters, I have 3 hammers, 2 madmen, and so I'm 49 up.
Wow, strong.
So I suddenly have to switch mentality. I'm thinking I need to win this round, and the best way to do that is to outwebs webs.
Right, okay.
So I have priority going into round 4, and Namor runs to the corner of the table.
Double long move, massive base, get him out of there.
He's got 2 hammers, so he's got the 2 VPs I need to win the game.
Yeah, and if he gets 6 at that stage, so if he gets every other point, it's not enough. It takes him to 15 at that stage.
Yeah, 6 would take him to 15, yeah. So I need Namor to survive.
Yeah.
And also, because I'm still holding 2 of the Mutant Madmen, he's having to burn like activations to flip them.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make life as hard as possible. It's by no means guaranteed because he's got a lot of fast movers. Toad then goes and he flips one of the Madmen. He then moves. He does quite a bold play because Toad has got 1 health left on his injured side, and he attacks Black Widow with the spender, so it's against her energy, and he one-shots her from full. And this is really bold from Eric, because if he doesn't one-shot her, Black Panther can counter-strike, and that essentially would KO Toad.
Yeah.
But he gets away with it. He dazes Black Widow, removes an activation of mine, and flips both the Madmen. So now all of a sudden, he's got the 4 Madmen, and he just needs some of the hammers. So now I'm nervous. I'm sweating. Fury then goes. So Toad is holding a hammer at this stage. The grunts are still alive, holding a hammer from that round 1.
Wow.
And they're able to gun Toad down. They take the 1 health they need. They are able to just get as far away as possible. Nick is then able to pick up Toad's hammer. He has to move to do it, annoyingly. And then I move him away. So I'm just basically spreading my characters as far wide as possible to make it as hard as possible for him to catch all of them.
Yep.
And Black Cat goes and takes the hammer off my grunts. My grunts finally die. Agent Venom attacks Nick, gets 3 damage into him off 1 attack. So I've been able to get it so that Agent Venom can only get 1 attack. So it ultimately comes down to Miles. Miles comes to attack Nick Fury. Nick Fury, eyes in the sky, gets behind a size 3 piece of terrain, and Miles can't see him. So Nick Fury's tech keeps him alive, and I squeak over the line 17-14.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like you're playing every little trick you can. Once Namor's out of there, you're trying to make his activations as inefficient as possible.
Exactly.
So you're playing every little trick. He's in a horrible position where he needs almost every point. So he needs his activations to run as efficiently and as smoothly as possible.
Yeah.
Because ultimately he wants as many activations as possible if he's going to have any chance of chasing down Namor. And it sounds like Nick, with his eye in the sky and the grunts play, it sounds like even with Black Widow being a bit of a nuisance, there was an opportunity there where Counter-Strike could have been really, really effective. It was a risky move from Eric. You're doing everything you can in your play, but with your remaining characters to make it as annoying as possible. And yeah, you get yourself over the line.
Yeah, and because even if he dazes Namor and picks up the 2 hammers, I've still got the 2 points with the other 2. So he needs everything to go his way. The position of everyone, he'd have been hard pushed to get to Namor. But no, it was a really good game, and it was a really interesting game because it was not what I expected.
No.
I was expecting, like, the early dice spikes completely flipped the game into Webbs having to do the attrition and me as S.H.I.E.L.D. having to do the running away, which is not what neither of us expected at the start of the game.
But if we think back to our previous episode about where your S.H.I.E.L.D. strengths lie, it's in that extract game, and you were actually looking forward to a Webbs matchup,
Yep.
particularly one where you had priority, and you would be forcing them into not just rely on their steals, but also, potentially have to fight you, and you've got tricks to duck and dodge. Even though they had really good dice, that ducking and dodging was crucial to you getting this win.
Exactly. Like, this was where actually I felt that the S.H.I.E.L.D. extract game was at its most powerful. Playing against a team that was trying to do a similar thing and can do it very well, and their secure play is better, but I got lucky because I drew my Madmen.
Yeah, drew your Madmen, and you had Prio. I think having priority in this was big because you were able to get the 2 midline hammers, meaning Toad is suddenly not very good at doing Toad things, and he grabs 1 in that turn 1 and he has to go chasing you. And Webbs, they don't have that great power generation, so they're not getting their steals online anytime soon.
No,
they
exactly.
need to go up early.
Exactly, yeah. So I've got a win under my belt.
Second win.
I know.
Congratulations. It's on a bit of a streak now.
2-2, so I'm feeling much better about myself.
Well done. How did the rest of the team get on?
So we actually got the win on that round as well.
Oh, fantastic. So the team is now 2-2 as well.
I think we're 2-2. I think it was 4-1 in the end. And also Stefan, our captain, managed to get his first win of the weekend.
Fantastic.
So
he must have
clearly 4 a.m. nights are the way to go.
And I bet Finley got another win, so he's 4-0.
He did. I was on the table next to him, and his opponent was just like, I can't do anything against this list.
Murder machine, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, congratulations. Let's find out what happens in round 5. So we go into round 5. We're now at the business end of the event. Potentially there could be a winner of the event by the end of this round, so it could be fairly conclusive. What team are you up against, and who do you get paired against?
So we're playing against one of the Irish teams called Agent of Crack, and I actually get paired up against Anthony, who's playing S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right, okay, so you've got a mirror match here.
So we have our first mirror.
Fantastic.
I win priority, and I want to go with my extracts.
Were there any differences between the two?
Yes, he's wanting to play the more attrition-y S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
So the secures are mostly up the middle, apart from Infinity Formula. But I think my extract game is what wins me this. and we draw Senators, and we draw Infinity Formula. So
Right,
I
okay.
managed to avoid up the middle. And poor Anthony, he's drawn his secures in all 5 of his games, and he's drawn Infinity Formula in all 5 of his games.
Oh no!
So
God.
he's set up to play this like aggressive shield list on like Gamma and Demons, and he's not played it at all.
Oh no! Yeah, he's got the most spread out. Well, at least he's been swimming in power all weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So it's 19 threat we end up with, and I have Nick Fury, Agent Venom, Spectacular Spider-Man, the Black Widow, so 4 threat Black Widow.
Nice. Well, Senators here. We've spoken about this.
Yep, and Dr. Voodoo.
Nice. Okay, it's a strong Senators team.
Yeah, and he has his Nick Fury, his Namor, his Spider-Woman. So Spider-Woman, remember, got last minute switched out for me.
Yeah, she got cut, didn't she?
He has old Nick Fury, so Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos, and then he's got Pyro.
Ah, okay, interesting. I like Pyro on Senators.
So you can kind of see a little bit more aggressive than my team.
Yeah, but a way to make you drop all those Senators once you're all in
Yes.
the middle. So,
And he decides to go with his Nick Fury leadership. So we're Nick Fury v Nick Fury.
and you got priority, haven't you?
Yeah,
That makes sense. He's expecting to go down on VPs.
yeah, exactly.
Because your Nick Fury move can go first.
Exactly. And so, surprising first turn, my Nick Fury goes and with his grunts grabs one of his Senators. His Nick Fury goes and with his grunts grabs one of my Senators. I then go with the Black Widow and grab one of his Senators. His Namor grabs one of my Senators. So we've had very standard early activations. I think all 6 Senators are picked up within like 3 activations each.
About 3 minutes, I imagine. Everyone,
Yeah,
you both know
yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah, it was bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
The first thing that was interesting that happened is I've lined up Voodoo against his Namor. That's how it's turned out. Voodoo walks up and he spikes into his Namor and does like 4 damage.
He's making up for the cold dice in the last game.
Yeah, gets a bunch of power, so he's immediately able to make Namor drop his objective and pick it up. It's huge from Voodoo. I was not expecting it. I was thinking, let's just try and get some damage through so that next turn I can finish him off. But no, huge. So I'm then thinking, okay, I've got the advantage on Senators, but he has last activation. I then KO his grunts. So he drops the thing back in his own way, but I've got rid of one of the Senators. But his last activation is to go with Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos. And this is where it's his turn to get a little bit of luck, because he shoots my grunts, KOs my grunts, but also gets the wild trigger, which has allowed him to basically move, pick up the Senator, shoot my grunts, and advance pursuit onto his back Infinity Formula.
Nice.
So after all that, I'm up by 5 VPs to 4. But as I know, his Nick Fury leadership means it's essentially 5-all.
Yep.
So yeah, so the Commando's doing a job on his side and Voodoo doing a job on mine. Voodoo then finishes the job and he dazes Namor, finishes Namor off. Agent Venom then gets attacked by Pyro, and this is where actually Voodoo is fantastic against Pyro because he can't be incinerated. So his
Great.
making him drop objectives is pretty useless.
Yeah. It's not possible against him.
Agent Venom's not so good against Pyro, but he does survive. He gets away with it. Survives against Pyro. I think Pyro has quite a sweet beam lined up. Agent Venom survives against Pyro, but then fails to daze anyone in return, which is a real shame. My Black Widow, who has grabbed an objective, then gets dazed by Spider-Woman, which is a little bit of a pain. Well, it's a big pain because she spikes into her and dazes her in 1. So me dropping the objective is irrelevant because he's able to move, pick it up, and then place himself back onto the point. If she'd managed to survive 2, then he would have been able to get his hands on it. But then the final thing that happens is Spectacular Spider-Man on the right-hand side throws his commandos away, but then they shield Mobile back onto the point and do a little bit of damage into Spectacular. So actually on the right-hand side, the board states that I'm putting some pressure on his back right. I have Nick Fury on my home back right. So that's the side that I'm winning. And then on the other side, unfortunately, he's got a bit of the edge because of that daze on Black Widow. So he's got the edge on points on that side. But the round ends 10-9 to me. So essentially, 10-all. top of round 3, there's 5 VPs on the right and 5 VPs on the left. And on the right is where I'm doing well, and on the left is where he's doing well. So I start with Spectacular Spider-Man, and Spectacular Spider-Man daze the commandos, which is exactly what I needed, because then he can pick up the objective, and I have all 5 points on that right-hand side locked down without really much pressure from him. So I'm thinking, okay, if I can just get 1 point on that left-hand side, I can win it this round. But as I expected, he then goes with Pyro and KO's Agent Venom. So Agent Venom did ultimately get dazed.
As you'd expect.
We were on a clock, so I put my token down. At the end of my Spectacular Spider-Man turn, I flipped my clock, and he's right, I'm going to go with Pyro. And I'm like, I should have Shield-mobiled Agent Venom. I had it in my head, and I just forgot to do it at the end of the turn. There was a size 4 building that Agent Venom was like in front of. I could have Shield-mobiled over it, and then Agent Venom later in the turn could have web swung back and had an influence.
And then had an activation. Yeah. Very frustrating, especially
Very
when you
annoying.
see it immediately.
And then Agent Venom gets KO'd by Pyro. Black Widow then goes, and she's woken up. She's got a ton of power. Basically, Nick Fury is holding an objective. His Nick Fury is holding an objective. If I can daze Nick Fury and steal his objective, then Black Widow should win me the game. Nick Fury, as I expected, eye in the skies away from her spender. So I spend her into Pyro, the aim of which is to do a little bit of damage, but mainly because I want that trigger. If I get a hit wild trigger, I can move medium with the Black Widow and make an attack. A 5 dice builder, full rerolls. And potentially then generate the power to do my spender again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she rolls like 5 hits. So she doesn't get the trigger. She has a good attack, but she doesn't get the trigger.
Great attack.
It's a great attack. So it means she doesn't have the power to spend her again. So she's not able to get Nick, and then she's promptly KO'd. And Voodoo is then dazed. So that right-hand side has gone really well for me, but that Black Widow activation needed to go better. The left-hand side, he scores all 5. And then he walks up with Spider-Woman next to my Voodoo and interrogates him to win the game.
No.
So out of nowhere, it's 15 all. I'm thinking, okay, I've got another round to go again. He wins the game.
That's the spice that Spider-Woman brings.
Yeah.
So you're at parity. It's classic mirror match. I mean,
it was
well played.
Anthony played that really nicely with his shield, knowing that he's going down, because he was able to keep it so that he was just 1 VP down, so that when I inevitably daze someone, he gets back to parity. And then Spider-Woman, coming in clutch at the end, is able to interrogate Voodoo to win him the game.
Yeah, well, that day's character is winning him multiple VPs. It's getting him back onto parity and then getting him the win. Gosh, that is someone who has mathed that crisis out. 15, essentially 5-4, 10-9, 16-15, job done.
It was a really interesting game because I felt like I had the advantage for a lot of it, and I did on points, but then he was able to get it back with the leadership. I look back on that game and think, actually, the Black Widow play, while a good play if it had come off, would have won me the game if it had come off, was too dicey.
Yeah, it's a lot.
What I should have done is I should have just moved Voodoo away, because he was holding an objective. It would have meant that he'd have had to chase Voodoo down, and it would have been more likely that Voodoo survived. Even if he hadn't survived, Spider-Woman would have to really chase him to get the interrogate, which would have meant he might not have been able to get the win.
And did Anthony need to get both the days on a character who was holding an objective to be able to score the points? Are there like 3 VPs riding on Dr. Voodoo here?
Yeah, there were 10 points on the board. I had 5 on the right and there were 5 on the left, and Voodoo was the one that I had on the left. So if he'd been able to get away...
Yeah.
And so I look back on that game and think that's where the Black Widow play could have worked. And if it had, it would have won me the game. But it was relying on dice.
Yeah.
Whereas the Voodoo play, I don't think would have necessarily won me the game, but it probably would have meant that Anthony couldn't win the game that turn.
In that round. And then Interrogate becomes less valuable, because Interrogate's most value is in turning 15 to 16.
Exactly.
That's when it's at its most value. Or if you're at 16 all, it's giving you that 1 extra point to winning the game.
Exactly, that edge.
If you go into round 4, 15 all, Interrogate's it might be the difference. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily the difference.
Exactly. So, it was a really interesting game. It was kind of almost a game of chess because we both had the same models, or not the same models, but the same team, and we kind of knew where it was going. And I was trying to essentially just get that edge on one side. He had one side, I had the other, and we were just trying to get the edge on one of the sides. And in the end, he managed to get the edge with a Spider-Woman Terrier. It felt gutting, but it was also very thematic.
Yes.
To lose to be interrogated, it's like, okay, you can win. I give up.
It's very S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, because it's all secret agents and soldiers and stuff. And she's got her prisoner in a room. She's got Dr. Voodoo.
Yeah.
She's beating him up. She's managed to get the important bit of information out of him.
And especially it being Voodoo who subbed in for me for Spider-Woman.
Yeah. There you go. A very thematic end.
Yeah.
Spider-Woman getting her revenge. Sadly, though, that's put you at 2 and 3. But how did the team get on?
So, unfortunately, as well, we lost that one 3-2.
Ah, okay.
So it's a shame. So there's 5 rounds. I'm 2 and 3. The team is 2 and 3. We're under on our averages. However, the way that WTC works is essentially it ends when there is a clear winner.
Right.
And as it happened, going into round 5, there were 3 teams that had gone 4-0. So there was going to be the final, the top table, but then there was going to be a team that played another team that had gone 3-1. So if the unbeaten team that had played the team that went 3-1 lose, the day ends because there's a guaranteed one winner.
5-0. Yeah, of course.
And it was hilarious in the room. So everyone else had finished. It was the Italians against the Finns, and it was 2-2 in the round. So the Italians were going for the unbeaten, so they were going for the finals. 2-2 on the teams, and the final game was the last game going in the hall. So there's basically like 200 people in the hall waiting with bated breath to see whether they were going to get another game. And it was like there was like a ring around the table. Like, it was
so much pressure
intense.
on those players.
And the game went to round 11.
What? How's
round
that possible?
11. I don't know.
I thought after round 7 or 8, they just had to take the draw.
No, so I think the way it worked, because they needed a winner, it was like death clock.
Right, okay.
So somehow they'd managed to not run out of time.
Right.
But they were both like very close. But in the end, the Italian maestro managed to win the day, and so we all got another round. So we did get a round 6.
Brilliant. Excellent. Oh, well, fantastic. Well, it gives you a chance to get that elusive 3 and 3, gives the team a chance to get that 3 and 3, and put a good showing for the Danes. So let's pause there and let's go over to round 6. So after all that excitement that was happening on the top tables, we've got a round 6. This is your opportunity to redeem yourself, go 3 and 3, evens for the event. Who do you then get paired up against in the final round as a team, and who do you have facing across the table?
Yeah, so this is I'm very pleased as a final round because, as you say, it gives me the opportunity to go 3 and 3. It also gives our team the opportunity to go 3 and 3. And as a weird kind of extra detail, on my Longshanks, I was 7 and 7 with S.H.I.E.L.D. So it's a chance to go positive with S.H.I.E.L.D. as well.
Brilliant.
So we match up against another Irish team. This is Cork Fights Gang.
Nice.
And actually, they're quite a fun team because one of the guys is on his stag do.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I think I heard this on the Rapid Fire podcast.
Yes.
The captain talking about his brother being on his stag do.
Exactly, yeah.
Excellent. So was he having a good one?
I think so. They were up for it, and they were chatting before the games, and everyone was up for kind of a more relaxed final round.
Brilliant. Ideal.
So it was quite a nice way to close out the event.
Great. Well, there's nothing riding on this, is there, for both teams other than pride and final placings?
Exactly. So we do the matchups, and I get paired against Pete, who is playing X-Men. So we've come full circle.
Yeah, so you've bookended your event with X-Men. I like that.
Yeah, but he is playing Storm X-Men, so I'm getting a different X-Men look.
Great.
Which is quite nice, really, because it means across the event I've played 6 games and played 5 different affiliations, but 6 different leaders, which
Brilliant.
shows a lot of variety for, a highly competitive event.
Definitely. And a lot of talk before this event was that, teams are going to be bringing the same 5 affiliations because, they'll be the best 5 affiliations. And, while some of the stats sort of indicate that some affiliations are more popular than others, you're still getting at the tabletop plenty of variety in your pairing. So
Exactly.
that's great.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm quite pleased, and I've not played against too many repeat characters either, so that's also good. So we roll priority, I win priority, and I go with my secures this time, and the reason is because he's got a fair amount of overlap. I don't hate his extracts. So we draw Infinity Formula and Paranoia pummels Populace.
Great.
And Pete chooses 17 threat. So at 17 threat, I go with Namor, Nick Fury, Spectacular Spider-Man, Black Widow, and then Black Panther Chosen of Bast, who's done me solid so far.
Brilliant.
Sorry, I should say I'm playing Nick Fury's leadership, so I'm expecting to go down on the extracts.
Even with priority?
Even with priority,
Well, I suppose you were stung, weren't you, by the X-Men last time,
Yeah.
thinking you'd go parity and then able to get the extract up. Can I just pause there for a second? You've won priority a hell of a lot this event.
Yeah, I did.
It's it's really gone in your favour. Obviously, we'll get back to the game, but do you think that's been beneficial for you? Do you think you've been able to sort of capitalise on that?
I think S.H.I.E.L.D. like winning priority because I think that because their extract game gets going when you win priority, but it has to require the correct extracts. So you'll notice that more often than not, I'm taking my extracts because it means I can get that ball rolling.
Even with priority, but it means with priority you're often playing on your opponent's secures, so therefore it balances out that disadvantage. Obviously, you'd expect with priority you'd be on your own secures, but not in your case.
Yeah, and I think that the team event benefits me in that regard because it means that often the secures that I'm facing are not as bad because we've set it up so that I'm not playing on constantly playing against EMAP teams.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you. Thanks for that. Apologies. Back to where you were.
Back to the game. So, Pete's squad at 17 thread is Storm, Nightcrawler, Kitty Pryde, Domino, and Logan, the Wolverine.
Ah, very nice. Fully affiliated. Oh, Pete, you're a good man of honor.
Yeah, it's a nice themey X-Men team to finish off the day.
But you wouldn't feel it's underpowered, and actually X-Men, because of how great their tactics cards are, particularly in those early rounds, you do benefit. You do feel like you benefit from going fully affiliated. You want the flexibility that anyone can use first class, that anyone can benefit from, to me, my X-Men. So it might feel themey, but it's also not a bad decision, strategically.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually go with Namor first, and I choose Namor to go and grab the central Paranoia because he can get there in one. So he grabs the central right one, but then he moves to the left. Black Panther then goes and grabs the left one. So they're the two Paranoia that I've got. And then his Storm grabs the far right Paranoia, and his Kitty grabs the central left one.
So what put you off going with Nick first and then going 3-1 up on the Paranoias?
So I didn't want Nick to go and stand in the middle of the board where he can just be a punching bag.
Right, that makes sense.
That was my thinking. Whether that is the right decision, we'll see. But yeah, the setup of the board was such that I didn't really want Nick to go into the middle.
Sure.
So when Kitty picks up her Paranoia, she decides to move to the left, so to the side that Namor goes to. So in the end, we essentially have 3 Paranoia on the left and 1 on the right. And then there's this B map of the Infinity Formula. On the left, I have Namor, Black Panther, and Nick facing off against Kitty Pryde, who is holding a Paranoia, and Domino. And then on the right, he has Storm in the middle, that's picked up a Paranoia, Nightcrawler, and Logan, who does the old, to me, my X-Men, medium move to hop onto my back point.
Great.
So he is facing off against my little 2-threat Black Widow, and Spectacular Spider-Man also double moves to his back point so that we're actually not scoring either of the Bs.
Right.
So the round ends, when you add up all the bonus points, it's 4-all. So we're parity early doors.
Okay, so 2 apiece plus the bonus point for the Paranoias, and because you're counteracting each other on 2 of the Bs, you're only scoring 1 each.
Exactly.
Great. So you've slowed down what could have been a much faster scoring game.
Yeah. So round 2 kicks off, and I see an opportunity here to try and stop Kitty Pryde just running away with the extract, because I have priority. So I charge in with Namor, and Namor does the deed and dazes Kitty.
Great. Well done, Namor. He's not been very good at that over the weekend, has he?
He's not. He failed in game 1, so he's made up for it in game 2. However, because I picked up a paranoia with Namor already, I can't pick hers up, so I place it somewhere where it's kind of forcing Domino to move off the point to grab it.
Excellent. Well, she hates moving,
Exactly.
so it's not a bad thing.
This is all on the left side. I'll go left and right because it's very much 2 different games because of the width of the table. Domino does go. She picks up the extract. I think she gets 1 shot away in doing so into Namor. And then Nick goes on the left and fails to daze her. But it's one of those weird ones where the grunts go, they shoot her, they get like 3 damage through off 1 attack, being grunts, 4 dice attacks.
Classic. Yeah.
And then Nick goes, I think he actually shield mobiles to her back B and then does two shots and doesn't get the 2 damage. And I choose, instead of going with Black Panther to try and daze Domino, which is a bit riskier, I choose to stay back with Black Panther onto my back left. He's holding a paranoia.
Exactly.
So in the end, on that side, I have 2 extracts. He has 1, but I have both the Bs, and I'm getting the bonus point over there.
And sorry, what happened to the one that was held by Kitty? Has someone come up and picked that up?
Domino's picked that up.
Domino's has moved and picked that up.
Yeah. So that's what happens on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, so things have gone quite well on the left. On the right-hand side, things don't go so well.
Well, Logan's facing 2-threat Black Widow, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I say it doesn't go well, but Spectacular Spider-Man goes, and he has a decent turn against Storm, and he forces the Xavier's Dream to allow Storm to survive.
Well, it was a risky play, Storm coming up.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's taken the damage, I assume, as well from the paranoia.
Yes.
So she's looking fairly vulnerable.
Yeah.
In the middle of the table.
Yeah, it is risky, and she's in the middle of the table, but I'm pleased because, okay, I would have liked to daze Storm, but getting rid of the Xavier's Dream early in round 2 is great because it just takes that pressure off later in the game. So she survives and then double moves to get away from my big threat of 2-threat Black Widow. And Black Widow also goes and has a decent turn. She moves to their back B and staggers Nightcrawler.
Oh, fantastic.
But he's got Children of the Atom.
Oh.
But again, I don't overly mind getting rid of that card early. I've got a couple of ways of staggering characters, so getting rid of that card early is great.
He is the wrong character, though, right? Because he loves using then that power. It just makes him stronger.
Yeah, and in doing so, Black Widow and Spectacular Spider-Man both get dazed at the end.
Well, there you go.
But actually, they've done quite a decent job because they've been able to slow down their scoring because he can't score both infinities and the bonus point because of the way that I've been able to, like, force Storm to run away, for example. And he's had to make more attacks than he would have liked to actually get the double daze. So at the end of the round, I get a lead at 10-8.
Nice.
So I'm pretty pleased with how it's gone on both sides because I've not got the paranoia off Domino, which is a shame. But on the right, I've managed to slow his scoring down despite having kind of only 2 characters against his 3.
Yeah, well, it sounds like those 2 points that were sort of left in limbo at the end of round 1, you've been able to capitalise on those.
Exactly.
Whereas Pete is still at where he was.
Exactly. Round 3 kicks off. He has priority now. And I'm going to again go left and right because this very much was the theme of the game. Namor is dazed by Kitty at the top of the round. Namor's taken a bit of damage from Domino, so I wasn't overly surprised here.
Sure. And he's already a bit of chip from the paranoia, you know.
Exactly. He wasn't looking that healthy. And Kitty grabs his extract. However, this time Nick does do the damage needed to take out Domino. So Domino goes down. The grunts grab the extract.
Oh, so the grunts are the ones that take Domino out to be able to then move.
No. The grunts have been killed, I think, by this stage. So they come back on. I think they got killed by an exploding Domino grenade.
That's my favourite way to take them out.
It's quite a nice way to take them out, yeah.
Collateral damage.
And Black Panther is still sat at the back of the board looking majestic.
Great. Scoring your points.
Scoring me points. So that's what happens on that side. So essentially on that side, the board state hasn't changed a huge amount. I still have 2 paranoia. He only has 1. but we've swapped extracts. On the right hand side, Spectacular gets 2 off dazing Nightcrawler, and then I decide to web swing him away. So he's off points. He's not able to be double tapped by anyone without them moving away from the point. So I'm essentially trying to just get him to survive to have a go next turn. It essentially neuters a lot of his activations, and it means that both him and Black Widow, despite being dazed last turn, neither of them get KO'd. But this time, he's able to score more points on that side, so I'm not able to do as good a job at negating those points. So the round ends at 14-12.
Right.
So I've still maintained my 2 VP advantage.
But you're back at 4 apiece, points-wise.
But we're back at 4 apiece, points-wise. But on that right-hand side, the fact that Spectacular and Black Widow survived is pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty pleased, given that he's sinking a lot of threat into them. So Namor wakes up at the top of round 4. He's handed me priority back. So I have a decision to make here. Do I try and really put the hammer down and try and take out characters? Or do I play the safe play and make Kitty drop her extract? I spend her with Namor into Kitty, force her to drop her extract, and then I just run back to my back point.
Okay, so Namor can collect it up, use his second action to get out of there.
Exactly, because now I've got all 3 of the extracts on that side, and 2 of them are in like a defensive bubble with Namor and Black Panther stood next to each other.
Brilliant.
on the back B. And also, importantly, Black Panther is untouched and out of range of Kitty and Domino's attacks because he's got stealth.
Great.
So that's what's happening there. So he's thinking, okay, I need to take out the grunts. And this is the first time I've ever done this, but I use Eye in the Sky on the grunts.
Well, they're holding, aren't they? So actually, they're as valuable as anyone.
So they move back into the bubble, and he ends up deciding, okay, I'll just take out Nick instead. So I think Domino ends up dazing Nick. So it activates the grunt, so I don't have a go with the grunts over there, but Nick is dazed.
But the Eye in the Sky move is almost as good as an activation, because you've still been able to move with them.
Exactly. So I'm going to pause on the left-hand side, because actually that happens quite early in the round, and then there's one key activation that ends up... Kitty Pryde's activation is a key activation at the end of the round. But I'll pause there, and I'll move to the right-hand side.
Right, okay. Tense.
I don't want to give it all away just yet. So Spectacular Spider-Man does some damage to Logan, but Nightcrawler survives a Logan to the face. So I throw Logan at Nightcrawler and he survives.
Yeah, I imagine he can put his defences up, can't he?
Yeah. I made a little bit of a miscalculation here because I thought Nightcrawler was on 1. So I double tapped Logan, thinking Logan's got all the power in the world at the moment. So if I get lucky, I spike and I daze him. If I don't, it's no real skin off my back. And then I can just throw Nightcrawler and guarantee the daze.
Yep.
But I miscalculated. He actually had 2 health left, so I instead threw Logan into him, but he survived that, which was a bit of a shame. So Logan's taken 3 or 4 damage at this stage. He beams into Spectacular and Black Widow. Spectacular gets wiped off the board. Like it's a horrible way to go for Spectacular.
It's just a mess.
But Black Widow survives this attack and counter strikes and does a damage to Logan.
Nice.
So Logan is now on 4 health. Black Widow at this stage has still got an activation left. So he decides with Logan, okay, let's finish Black Widow off. And then essentially he's got the run of that side of the board. Black Widow survives, counter strikes, and dazes Logan.
Finishes him off with another 2 damage.
Finishes him off, 2 damage.
Because when he said, it does 1 damage, I'm like, he's just going to heal that up. Like,
yeah.
He doesn't care. But when he's close, when he's within touching distance, then it's too little too late.
So I get very lucky there because Black Widow survives. Okay, she's counting blanks. It was quite a risky play from Pete, but I think the logic is that Nightcrawler was so close to dazing that the odds are that Black Widow could move and daze Nightcrawler.
Just do the final damage, because you said in the last round he'd been left on 2. Obviously he's blocked 3 of the 4 damage coming in from Logan being thrown at him. So yeah, she could realistically go in and do that 1 damage. So
it was a big play from Black Widow.
It was a big play.
Now she gets to go. So she moves onto the point and she attacks Nightcrawler but fails to take him out. He's got 1 left. But she's got enough power so the counter-strike is online. So Pete has learned from his mistakes and decides not to attack her with Nightcrawler and just moves on to the point. Nightcrawler's healthy, so he's winning that point. But the fact that Logan is down means that he's only able to score 3 on that right-hand side, because he can get 1 from Nightcrawler, 1 from Storm on the other Infinity, and 1 from Storm holding the point.
Sure.
So Black Widow surviving has stopped the bonus point, which is pretty important at this stage when it's a tight game. 2-threat Black Widow's really been a champ.
Absolutely. She's certainly playing her worth.
Yeah. So that's the right-hand side is finished. We have 1 activation left. It's Kitty Pryde, and Pete maths it out and realizes he needs to one-shot Black Panther, Chosen of Bast, who's stood there majestically at the back of the board.
All game, done nothing, just scoring you points. So he's full
Yeah.
health.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe the 1 damage he took for the paranoia.
Yes. He might not have even taken 1 just because of where Namor was.
Sure.
So I think he's full health. And he's got stealth. So Kitty has to get within range 3, which means she can't double tap him. So she has to move. She can't just place, because that would be range 4. So she moves, and she only gets 3 damage through. So Black Panther survives. He's done his job. He's scored me about 6 VPs, and the game ends 19-16 to me.
Wow. It felt close, but as long as you could keep that margin and your characters could survive it out, and it sounds like whenever you lost an extract, you were able to trade 1 back to keep that gap.
Yeah.
When you needed priority, you had priority to get a character out of there. That sounded like the most powerful, most useful part of when you had priority. You were able to get a character out to force him to move to chase you, given that you had more of the extracts.
Yeah, and what was quite interesting in this game was he realised very early on that he made a mistake with Kitty. He went left when he should have gone right, because it meant that where all my big characters were, there were 3 extracts. So in a normal situation, it would have been 4 and 4 on either side. But because there was only the 1 extract on the right-hand side, it meant that I naturally had an advantage.
Yes.
And while I couldn't take full advantage, I could never quite get both the extracts off them at once until that final round. I was always able to get the edge on that side, and I had enough on the other side to stop him getting as big an edge.
Yeah.
So it meant that I could just keep in the lead. And also, I think looking back on it, is even if he had been able to get an edge, that was when Nick Fury's leadership could have come in clutch.
I think it's a really good lesson in sort of understanding where the VPs are on the table relative to where the threat is on the table.
Yeah.
And it's quite easy in deployment to not think about that, but then by turn 2, get yourself into a situation where your opponent has more of their threat concentrated on more of the VPs.
Yeah.
And you then have to then chase that or somehow try and, flip it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, more often than not, the player who's got more threat devoted to the scoring will win out, because they can affect the game more with those characters. And it sounds like Pete just perhaps put too much threat onto the wrong side.
I think over the course of this event, I think I've played B maps all but 1 game.
Should we have a look?
Yeah. Well, why not we pause there and talk about this in the debrief section?
Brilliant. Well, before we do, how did the rest of the team get on?
So the rest of the team, unfortunately, we took another loss as a team. So I think it was another 3-2 loss. So we've had a couple of narrow losses as a team.
But congratulations to you for getting your 3-3. But commiserations to the team for sadly not getting theirs.
So we were 2-4 at the end. A bit of a shame not to go evens. We weren't the best Danish team either, but it was close.
Right.
So it was a bit of a shame, but it was a great team. We had a great time, and I think we did all right for what was a highly competitive event.
Fantastic. And then, looking at the Longshanks, sadly, Finley finally lost a game as well. So The tournament ended at 5 rounds. He would have been 5-0, which is unbelievable. So congrats to him. Sounds like a bit of an MVP for Denmark.
Yeah, he was great. He was our reliable guy that we tried to match up because we knew he could do the business.
Yeah. Well, okay, brilliant. Well, let's head over to the debrief.
I don't mind being wrong, as long as I can correct my mistakes.
So congratulations, Archie. WTC 2024, you've completed it, and well done. overall, how do you think the event went for you? Before we get into any details on the roster and sort of your, how the team got on and everyone else, how did the overall event feel?
I mean, I had a great event. I know you've been keeping count, but I ended up with 11 games across the weekend.
Very good. I'm very impressed. It's respectable. It's not the 15 I called out. Maybe that was
No.
a little bit too many, but at least you got yourself into double figures. It looks like you were really gunning for it. So congratulations, well done.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun games, and actually, given that I started on 0-2, my first 2 games were losses. I was really pleased to be able to get back to parity by the end of it. And actually, generally, I was very pleased with the way I played and the way my Shield roster functioned. I think you'll hear 2 of those 3 losses were by 1 VP.
Yeah.
So I could very easily have swung it. But also, in a similar way, all of my wins were quite close as well. It was never a runaway one way or another. So actually, to have 6 really competitive, close games was exactly what I wanted out of WTC.
Absolutely. And listening back to those games and what went on, I really felt that you went on a bit of a journey throughout the event. I mean, obviously you started with those 2 losses in your practice games, but I felt like in every game you were applying something you'd learned in previous games. You were picking up on a situation that you'd encountered before and perhaps made the wrong decision and then made a different decision. And I don't want to put things together that shouldn't be together, but I get the feeling that was often the difference between a win and a loss. And when you won games, it was by playing on areas that you'd learned and practice. So it just goes to show reps is great. You learn from your mistakes, and you were able to put that into practice. Do you feel that was the case?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting thinking back on it, because I didn't have loads of games with Shield going into it. I'm very bad at staying on one list. I get excited about other things. I play other things. And so I haven't had loads of reps with Shield. And I think actually that probably contributed to the start that I had, because it meant that I wasn't as kind of tuned with what I was doing, especially with someone like Namor, who was still a relatively new character to me. I hadn't played loads of games with Namor, maybe like a handful. And specifically relating to Namor is what I learned was when to choose the Invaders leadership over Nick Fury's.
Right.
And actually, the way that my game plan works, it's probably slightly better to use Nick Fury's leadership more often than not. Partly because you then have access to the tactics card slots, which the Invaders takes.
Sure. And that gives you your tricks to, get out and dodge. It allows you to have an additional healing card potentially as well.
Yeah.
Keep people alive. So once you talked about leaning into your extract game, you can't always go with Nick and pick up 2 extracts. So when that's not the case, you can go with Nick's leadership and then use that extra tactics card slot to, once you've grabbed extracts, keep those characters alive.
Yeah, and it also means that if the extract game goes poorly early, I'm able to stay in the game by getting that VP back. And actually, I undervalue the importance of that extra VP for just sticking in the game, so that it means you're in that position where you have one swing turn and you get back into it.
I mean, Anthony in Game 5 was a masterclass in it. He
Exactly.
beat you by 1 point in that mirror match, and he's able to use a combination of Nick Fury's leadership and interrogate to keep at parity with you, and then win the game in round 3.
Exactly. I scored far more VPs in terms of extracts and secures against Anthony, but he was able to leverage those extra bonus VPs that you get because of being Shield affiliated. Yeah.
Exactly. So looking at the roster, having played with it, 11 games over the weekend, but 6 really competitive games in the tournament, is there anything you'd change? Are there any sort of standout performances from any of the characters or anyone who just didn't cut the mustard?
Yeah, so I never played with Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos.
Right, because they're quite popular, aren't they, in Shield?
Yeah.
You do see them. I see them an awful lot on the table when I come across Shield.
And I think part of that was because I just preferred as 3 threat options Spectacular Spider-Man and Black Panther. And I think Black Panther, Chosen of Bass, was very good. I mean, he played 3, won 3.
But that means Dr. Voodoo played 3, lost 3 as well.
Yes. And actually, let me finish with the Nick Fury first. I wonder if whether bringing in an Iron Man in that slot and bringing a Helios laser might be an option, because then it just means that I know I can have this one turn where I am almost guaranteed a daze.
Yeah.
And that could be crucial for my team. And so I just wonder if, I think the Howling Commandos are great, and maybe on an E-map, which I didn't play any of, they would be worth it. But maybe swapping in them for Iron Man might be a thing to look at in the future, just because he gives that little bit of extra edge with the Helios.
Yes, if the Howling Commandos, they don't seem to fit with your game plan. They're probably more of that shield gun line.
Yeah.
Although I did like Anthony's play where he was able to shoot, to be able to pick up an extract that's perhaps a bit further away than would be from a Daze character, or your grunts drop it back, but he can still go and chase it.
Yeah.
So I did quite like that play for the extracts, but otherwise they are. They've got ranged attacks, they've got stealth themselves, they can shoot out of activation. So maybe they're slightly the wrong focus for your type of shields. And then actually, if you're going to have something in that 3-threat slot that's just completely different, rather than something that just doesn't work at all, Iron Man might fit that bill.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing is, I'm talking about the two splashes predominantly, but yes, Black Panther went 3-3 and Voodoo went 0-3. But actually, I think Voodoo was a really important part of the roster. I think bringing that mystic threat and also that threat of the extract drop, that was huge. Like, in my first game against Professor X-Men, Nightcrawler essentially ran away from him. So, yes, Nightcrawler can do that very effectively, but Voodoo has such a presence on the table that is such a mental tax on your opponent. And I think he's really good in shield extract play for that reason. However, I think one thing I would do differently with Voodoo is, if I'm bringing Voodoo, I bring a tactics card which was in my 10, but it was my 10th one, and that's the initiative. So the initiative, the main thing that it gives you a gadget token which does some things, but that doesn't really matter. The big thing that it does is it makes you shield affiliated, and that unlocks the tactics cards. So it means that Dr. Voodoo can use Battlefield Medicine, but also Shieldmobile.
Brilliant.
And that would have been really, really good. I think in Game 1 in particular, I can pinpoint a moment where if I had Shieldmobile, suddenly Voodoo is able to move from one side of the board to the other and still double tap and make you drop an objective.
Because Shieldmobile, it gives you a long move, right? And that
Exactly.
It's as if they've got the fly as well, so it can go over terrain.
Exactly. So I think, looking back across my games and looking back across my losses, most of the losses that I had when I had Voodoo, which were all of my losses, I can pinpoint moments where actually if Voodoo had access to Shieldmobile, that would have been really, really good. Because Voodoo's biggest problem is his action economy, and that would have helped that.
And we are talking fine margins here when you lose 2 of those games by 1 point. So
Exactly. For example, against Anthony, if Voodoo survives or if he runs away, if he Shieldmobiles away with my extract, then suddenly Anthony's having to chase and he can't do this like parity thing which is working for him with Spider-Woman with Interrogate. Yeah, that I think, looking back on it, I don't need to break down the roster and rebuild it from scratch, because evidently I've gone 3-3, I've done okay, and all my losses have been tight. But I think that would be the one change that I would make in my thinking, reflecting on the games.
Brilliant. And then in terms of MVPs, who did you really enjoy playing with over this weekend? Who was it? It was really difficult to not put on the table just because they were a ton of fun.
I found it very difficult not to take Nick Fury and Agent Venom. I love playing with them before. I think the Nick Fury tricks is great fun. I think Agent Venom just has this insane toolkit that if you can get online and going, he just rolls through people. I think my core was those two and then Spectacular Spider-Man. I think Spectacular Spider-Man's just great. His reliability is just great. And actually he hits quite hard, surprisingly hard for a 3-threat, because he can do 2 5-dice attacks into a throw.
And because he can guarantee that throw online,
Exactly.
It feels like 3 attacks.
Yeah, and Agent Venom's similar, but it's just not guaranteed. But his spikes do more.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agent Venom is one of those characters who, I'm not interested in the webs generally, but Agent Venom, his card looks lots of fun. The potential to spike with him and move around the table is excellent.
And for a long time, I've really wanted to find a home for Agent Venom, and I've really struggled with him because of his power generation, and he can go down very easily. Like he's not very tanky.
Sure.
Especially that energy. But I really think he's got a home in S.H.I.E.L.D. because his power generation is not helped, but he can get moved around by the Shield tactics card, so that either puts him in a good position or it allows him to get out of dodge.
Yeah, and it prevents him from having to spend power on his web swing, so he can then spend it on his throw or to get rid of conditions, etc.
Exactly. So he was a lot of fun to play. I was also very pleased that I managed to get the She-Hulk Namor combo out, and it worked, despite that only being for one game.
I'm so pleased that it at least made the table once,
Yeah.
and it was a win as well. And I think anyone who's interested in playing She-Hulk needs to go back and listen to that game, because it was the perfect scenario for her, and it was played very, very well. I think, and I don't think
Yeah.
it's immediately obvious going into that game that She-Hulk is the option there, but it works really well.
No, I think I probably surprised my opponent with She-Hulk, just because she doesn't see the table outside of A-Force. And actually, I think that's a mistake, because the tactics cards from S.H.I.E.L.D. really bring her up another notch.
Yeah, I mean, just having she's an aggressive bodyguard as well, so
Yeah.
she can keep those other Shield characters alive, so
Yeah.
they can run around and do their business, and
Yeah.
she can put out the hurt.
Yeah.
You power her up, and with the weight training, she can roll lots of dice, and defensively she's a lot stronger when she's got those Namor rerolls as well. So
Yes, exactly.
very good, excellent.
And then the other thing I wanted to touch on, which I alluded to at the end of the last section, was these B maps.
Course.
I think I learned a lot about B maps.
So 4 times you played on B maps.
Yes,
over the events.
four B maps. So was it 2 Infinity and 2 Madman, or maybe 3 Infinity and 1 Madman? Yeah, 2 and
2 Infinity, 2 Madmen. Yes.
So I hadn't played like loads on B maps before, but I think I really noticed it at this event that you often get this like 2 E's, and basically a huge part of winning E maps is leveraging the VPs on the side that you have the most threat. The prime example was that last game against Pete, is we both had one side which was overloaded with threat, but I had the advantage because there were more extracts on that side. And I think that was a really interesting lesson that I kind of, you can theory about it, but when you actually play it, you've got to kind of maths it out, because if you make a wrong move turn 1, that can essentially be game over, because it just gives your opponent that massive advantage, and it takes so long to get between the Bs unless you have a particularly mobile team. So I think that's something I would think about more when I'm taking Bs, and I took 2 Bs. I should have a plan for pivoting to either side. And I think S.H.I.E.L.D. do that quite well because of S.H.I.E.L.D. Mobile, and especially Namor with the long move.
Is there something about trying to as well making sure that when you place, just being conscious if a character needs to pivot to the other side, where you place them around the secure?
Yeah, exactly.
It can be so tempting to keep a character safe and be on the outside of that square, but then quite often, even with a double move, they can't. If they need to get to the other diagonal, they can't reach it.
Yeah, I think that's really important. It was a lesson that I learned a lot this weekend, is that ability to read the game early to try and leverage the points where they come up.
And if you can actually force that imbalance in your favour, doing your best to keep it as such, throwing characters the wrong side of the Bs, displacing them in that way, or taking out characters before they can jump across and affect the game.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of lessons learned over WTC weekend. And I think that was one of the great things about going out there, is you were always playing against opponents that knew what they were doing. They were all top, very good players. All the games were hard. There were no easy wins. And so I learned a lot about the game across the 6 competitive games, but also across the 11 games that I played over the weekend.
It's a really interesting sort of social experiment versus other types of tournaments, right? Because it's such a high investment for all the players to be there, but it has such a massive capacity. So you'd expect something, you'd expect an event with 210 players to really have, all spectrum of characters, from the most competitive to the most casual. But actually, there's so much preparation, so much build-up has gone into this. Everyone was on the hype beforehand. And yes, it will be local for some people, but for others, for the majority of the people in that room, it's such an investment to be there. They're going to be players who have experience. So every game is going to be against, whether they're, a seasoned veteran or not, they know the game. They will be regularly playing enough for them to feel like they can commit and invest in such an event. So it's not like a regular event in that sense where you would have a full bell curve of players.
Yeah.
I imagine there are going to be more players sort of skewed towards not necessarily the more competitive and talented edge, but certainly the more experienced end of the bell curve.
And what was really cool, I think, going there is because I've basically exclusively played in the London or UK meta. And going to this, there's a whole new world out there. Like, there's so many different groups, and they all have different opinions on what they think the best things in the game are. And so actually going to WTC was fantastic because it allowed me to see like different lines of thought, different ways of playing the game, and there was a huge amount of variety at this event. Like, there was a lot of Cabal, there was a lot of Asgard, but actually generally there was a lot more variety than I was expecting. And,
that's really great to hear.
Yeah, and it kind of got me out of that, like, the London bubble, as it were, where everyone's kind of talking about the best pieces. But actually, MCP's in a good spot. So let me give you an example. A-Force were the highest percentage win rate. I think they went kind of 7-1 across the weekend.
Wow.
So it wasn't like they were only played once, won once.
Yeah.
They actually had a very good, and okay, they have a very good player playing it, but it just shows that you can have these kind of undervalued teams perform well at a big competitive event if they are piloted well.
Absolutely. That is really positive to hear because you feel like MCP is played a lot on TTS, and therefore the community is online, whether it's on Discord or on other forums, that plurality of thought gets diminished because everyone's reading the same articles, everyone's part of the same forums, therefore everyone's saying, Bill and Rhino are the best characters.
Yeah.
But what you've experienced is actually, maybe the team format perhaps helps that a little bit as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it forces every team to have 50 unique characters and different ways of thinking, and it forces people out of their comfort zone of their regular splashes and what the internet is telling them to put on the table, and it's forcing them to look at alternatives because another one of their players is taking that character. Therefore, who is an alternative? We're expecting other people to be bringing this, right? How can we counterplay that? And it allows other teams which perhaps don't see the table as much or aren't topics of conversation in the forums. It allows them to see the table. It allows them to thrive and demonstrate to everyone that actually they're still viable. They're still very good in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. All in all, it was just a really, really good event.
Brilliant. So congratulations to you and your team. But who won the event?
So one of the London teams came a close second. So we had a good performance from our London. I think it was 51% affiliated.
That was the sort of London A team, wasn't it? There's
exactly.
They're practically celebrities in the MCP scene. You got Connor, Steve Cole, Pat Dunford, Joe Manji, and Peter Sidaway. So yeah, a real top team.
Yeah,
and they've done fantastically well.
They did really well, and I think the round they lost to the eventual champions, which were the Italian Maestros.
Congratulations, Italian Maestros.
So they had a hell of a weekend because so often their games came down to the last game, and it was so often one of the last games being played.
Wow.
So they really did it the hard way, but all power to them. They managed to win those clutch games, and they ended up coming out on top.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations to them. It's not easy going 6-0, and when we, like you say, that round 5 sounded like a real nail biter.
Yeah.
And if they'd lost that, that's it. Tournament's over. Another team has won. Fair play to the Italians.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And just a quick shout out to the Belgian team. So they played the Italians in the final round and they lost, but they ended up coming third. But I felt a little bit sorry for the Belgian team because they were so close to winning in that round 5. And then they suddenly had to go and play again.
Wow.
And yeah, but they had a great weekend as well. So Italy first, the London team second, and the Belgian team third. So a nice spread of countries doing well.
Fantastic. And obviously gaming is the centre of the event, but there is also some hobby prizes for show. Was there any news from that?
Well, yeah, I was very pleased because I actually managed to take home the prize for best painted medium-based model with my Namor.
Oh, fantastic. This is what we love to hear on Cable's Conquest. Yes, we love to hear about the games, but the hobby is also heart and centre of why we do this. And your Namor is stunning, and I'm very pleased for you that it's getting the credit it deserves.
Yeah, I'm so pleased. I couldn't really... The resin base pour was a slightly risky thing, new thing for me to try, but I'm glad it's come out well and that people appreciated it. And have to say, the hobby standard across the board was brilliant. Yeah, I'm very pleased that I've come away with something like that. And I've really worked hard on my painting, so I'm glad that it got some recognition there.
And you've come very close. You know, the Mutant Weekend last year, were you second, third in the painting competition with your Immortal Hulk?
Yeah.
So you know, to take first place for the medium base on Namor, it's well deserved. If anyone wants to go find Archie's Namor, do check out his Instagram. It's on there. It absolutely. He's a bronze god. His Namor.
Yeah, he's been on the tanning bed.
Jumping out of the ocean. It's been excellently executed. So well done, Archie.
Thank you. So yeah, and that, I guess it's been quite a long episode compared to what I expected. We got excited about all the games, so I think we'll wrap up there. My closing remark would be like, get tickets to WTC 2025 because it was a great event. So thank you, Curtis, for coming on and being my co-host and listening to me talk about the games.
Thanks for having me on this journey. I was, like I say, I was following it over the weekend, and you know, I appreciated the messages, and I was always checking on Longshanks, but to hear the details as well, I felt like I was there at least a little bit.
Yeah, good. So where can people find you?
So if you want to check out my toy soldiers, you can see them on my Instagram, simple_edge highlights. But if you want to just drop me a message, whether it's about the pod or about the hobby, you can find me on Discord, Curtis H. You'll also find me popping up at events at some point on Discord. I'm just Curtis. Sorry, on Longshanks. And how about yourself, Archie? Where can we find you?
So my Instagram, as Curtis has already mentioned, is @Smeagol's Corner. And yeah, please do reach out either on Instagram or my Discord is Archie_RC. So please do reach out if you have any comments or say hello, ask about our lists. Even if you want to suggest lists that we'd like to play at future events,
please.
We'd be up for some kind of inspiration from the fans.
We're well up for a challenge, aren't we?
Exactly.
We like trying to find ways to make interesting models, interesting characters, or affiliations work. So if there is something you'd like to see, we've pretty much done our collections and taken them to events. And yes, of course, we've got lots of ideas for the future. But if there's something that you want to see us try at an event at some point in the future, do drop it either Archie or myself a message, and we'll try and make it work.
Yes. And before we conclude, I just want to shout out our audio whiz, Louis BF, who also has been working on our YouTube channel. I think we're about up to date on the YouTube channel for all our episodes, so do check that out if you want to see it. But I'll stop there. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Curtis, for being on. And until next time, keep up the conquest.
The name's Cable. Remember it.